Okay.
Hi. It's Oink Time. We're here.
Welcome
We're
to
back.
On Time.
Yes.
I'm Jen Carnovale.
I'm Ben Ellwood.
And today we are joined by our wonderful guest, Nico. Sydney artist.
Sydney artist. If you live in Sydney, you've probably seen Nico's art all over the place. On walls.
On wine.
On fences. And other places where it is illegal to put art.
But they're fucking sick. And we're going to be chatting to Nico about a whole bunch of stuff. We covered everything. It was awesome. You should listen. If you like the podcast, rate it 5 stars. Tell everyone you've ever met. Make the Oink Time crew grow. Piglets unite. Benny?
Yeah, oink, oink, everybody.
Check out our live shows. They're at the Comedy Lounge. Ben's afraid. It's really fun. Sean's into it. I love it. We talk about stuff that Ben won't let us air. Now, if you would like to contact us, please do so on Twitter at OinkTimePod or email us oinktime@gmail.com. And now we have a very fascinating talk with Nico. It's really great. You should listen in.
About doom.
Yeah, lucid dreams.
Well, I don't know.
So it's funny that you mention it because I had a dream where I was walking along and on the floor I just saw just a rogue knob, just a disconnected knob. So
Like
not
a-
even
like
not
a-
the full penis, just the knob.
Oh
of
shit!
the
I think they're
penis.
like a volume knob.
No, just the head of a penis. And I looked at it and then I realized, that's my knob.
Whoa.
So I was like, whoa, what's going on here? That's my knob on the floor. And so I quickly started yelling, like, has anyone here got a carton of milk? Has anyone here got a carton of milk? And someone handed me this little carton of milk and I like plunged the knob into the carton of milk, which I then obviously after waking up realized that when you were a kid, remember when your tooth would fall out? And they'd say like, put it in a thing of milk and go to the dentist.
Yeah.
So like my plan was to somehow get to some kind of medical professional with this pickled knob in the milk
What do you?
Calcium
What,
filled
how
to
do
be
you?
reaffixed.
How do you interpret that dream? What is the meaning of
I don't know.
my
I
knob
don't know.
fell off
I don't
and
know.
I put it in a carton of milk dream?
I don't know. I'm not a
Wow.
believer in the dream interpretation thing, you guys.
Did you know that Lorena Bobbitt is
If
making?
it works in my favor, sure.
But don't you think it's weird that they could say that all dreams have a universal meaning when different symbols would mean different things to you? Like if you were molested by a broomstick,
Yeah.
then
you
a
see
broomstick would probably have some kind of different meaning in your dream to mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But isn't it that whole Jungian archetype thing where it's like
Fuck.
all symbols have like a. I don't believe this, but
A
isn't it-
universal
like an
meaning,
objective
yes,
universal
yes.
interpretation, and so thus
Yeah.
like teeth falling out means that
Sure.
you're worried about
yeah.
You're
money
changed
or something like that.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's like those Japanese gods that are. You seen all these little things?
No.
It's like Japanese.
Like the umbrella
deities.
god?
There's like an umbrella god and like a dildo god and
Yeah.
a cabbage god.
Yeah, right.
I'm into it.
Yeah, I'm into that. I'm into like the pantheistic
cool.
corn god, cloud god. Like, why not?
Why not? As valid as any other god.
Are you a religious person?
No,
At all?
No, not at all.
Nothing?
No. I don't profess to know anything.
Did you grow up with religion?
Not really. I mean, we attended an Anglican church for a few weeks after moving house, but I think it was just like my parents' weird, like 80s attempt at making a friend circle.
Yeah, socializing.
With the most boring people
Yeah.
in the suburb.
Man, why do people do that?
Well, it was
Like,
pre-internet.
I'm lonely.
It was pre-internet.
Oh, yeah.
There was no like Newtown Facebook group, so instead you just had to go to the
Yeah, golfing or
local
church.
temple and hope.
Do
that you
people
meet.
do that? Like, do people like? I know that those groups exist.
I think that many people do that.
It seems like a forced kind of recreation thing. There's
Well,
part
I
of me
did-
that recoils at the thought of it.
But it's
I
safe.
did note that a lot of
Or it feels
heavy
safe.
drug users from my school days, the ones that didn't die ended up kind of becoming members of really like extreme churches.
Finding their God.
Finding their God. So
What,
I guess-
as an alternative to drug abuse.
As an alternative to drug use.
Yeah, fill the
as
void.
a supplement.
Also,
to drug.
12 steps, it's all about a higher being. So it's
Yeah,
kind
that's
of like
true.
a nice push in that direction, isn't it?
Well, we were talking about this earlier on the walk here. It's interesting that it seems to me that a lot of people that grew up with religion, when they turn against it, they replace it with a new form of ideology that isn't necessarily religious, but it is approached with the same level of fervor.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, like the ex-Catholic that becomes the most obnoxious atheist.
Yes, they're
Or-
often very passionate atheists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I suppose that maybe, the bitterness or the resentment that they feel towards that religion then fuels the next passion.
And I feel like there's a void left.
Yeah, huge void.
And to say that there's a question mark there is so much more uncomfortable than to slot in science or whatever else they want to replace it with in their life. That I feel like it's way more comfortable to be like, no, this is, and it's like they can just run in the other direction.
I think it's also like, I think if you've grown up in a kind of a psychological landscape that is very much like, I know what the thing is and I have a monopoly on truth, you don't lose that gland when you turn against religion.
The gland is swollen.
Yeah. So it does become like, so it's
it has to be put to a different use.
Yeah. Like a lot of people that are, that grew up in very oppressive, controlling religions, I've noticed tend to get into kind of very aggressive, controlling, fake wokeness. Where all of a sudden it's like, I'm offended and that's outrageous. And it's very much the same kind of mentality that they grew up with, but it's just now under a different umbrella. But it's still that same kind of religious fervor.
Well, I think it's what you grow up with.
I think, it might not even just be religion. It might also just be what you grow up with. Like, I grew up in a household that was super liberal, and I think my parents weren't really aware of the effects of sugar. So, like, for example, like at breakfast, I would enjoy a large glass pitcher full of Tang.
Oh, wow.
Which is like that dusty orange.
Oh, I know Tang.
You know Tang?
Yeah.
I lost for astronauts, right?
Lost a lot of they made it for astronauts. Yeah. There was a big sticker on the front of the jar that just said, contains vitamin C. So my parents were sort of like, this is obviously orange juice that's somehow being reconstituted for the space age. So just guzzling that as a boy, now all my teeth are completely fucked. And I really have no yearning to eat or drink a lot of sugar. Whereas my wife, she was raised in a house where they ate like sultanas for a treat.
Yeah, me too.
And so now like she's a full sugar pig. If she sees any kind of sweet thing, she will devour it.
I feel like I grew up similarly where my mum, like to the point where I had a blood test to see if everything was A-okay, and they were like, you're low in salt, and that never happens.
Yeah, this is just dust in water.
Yeah, and I was like, well, I grew up, like my mum was like, I didn't realize, but very health conscious, would never put extra salt, never gave us sugar, any of that shit. And then there was a brief period when I moved out where I was like, I can eat whatever the fuck I want. And I like...
Ate all the things.
Yeah, ate all the things, and now I'm kind of swinging back the other way. Although my partner, whenever he is not home, he always freaks out because in his words, I eat like a bachelor when he's not home.
Yes.
So that might be...
like fucking,
last time I drank a 6-pack of beer and ate mac and cheese for 2 days, and he was like, this is not okay. You need to... But maybe I've just replaced my mum, like... telling me how to eat with Chris telling me how to eat. I don't know.
Yeah, so I was the same as you, where I would, it was just a sugar pig as a child. Like I used to have Pebbles. Remember Pebbles?
No.
Cereal? The Flintstones.
Yes, I remember Pebbles. Yes, I remember Pebbles well.
Yeah, and it was like one of the, and because I was always, like I grew up on American comic books.
Yes.
And so I was always obsessed with like, I want to get Lucky Charms and I want the cereal that has the toy in it. Yes. And Pebbles was the first.
But they don't even have that. They didn't even have that when we were little, did they?
Not in Australia. That's what I mean.
No, I used to read about that in Mad Magazine as well. Yeah. Want to get that.
It's like, I want the shitty fucking piece of plastic.
Sugar toast.
Yeah. Cinnamon sugar toast and all that stuff.
The Applejack.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
I wanted those foreign American goods.
Pebbles was the first one that came to Australia, and they had like miniature Flintstones toys in them. And so I would get Pebbles and then, just heap sugar on top of that. And I always remember at the end of every bowl of cereal, just this thick paste.
Oh, I remember that paste.
Milky sugar.
That paste was there on Frosties as well.
Yeah.
Remember the guy, the sugary tiger?
Yeah, and you think back on it and it was like, I don't think I had like clinical ADHD, but fuck, man, like I could not sit still. And
sugar
I was
induced.
Out of fucking control and just moody.
It was a weird time for health. Like I remember when my parents would try and encourage me to be healthy, they would suggest that I might eat a roll up because it had a picture of an apple on the front.
Yeah.
But really it was just like a sugary slab of sugar. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's all it was, a sugary slab of sugar.
Yeah, for some reason, as a 17-year-old man, when a sushi train opened up near my house, I remember coming back and feeling like quite avant-garde, telling my parents that I'd just eaten sushi. And I remember them looking at me with sheer terror in their face and saying that they hoped I didn't get hep. You know what I mean? So I'd been eating pure sugar for 17 years or something, but then to go and eat sushi was terrifying.
Were you a fat kid?
I went through a stage of being a fat kid.
Yeah.
Which was when the high school canteen became a thing.
Remember fucking high school camp? How old are you?
I'm 34.
Yeah, right.
Same.
So we're of the age where
Yes.
the high school canteens was like chicken chippies.
So I'd
and
start off the
fucking
morning.
meat pies.
I'd start off the morning with a pizza rounder for breakfast,
yeah.
and I'd enjoy it with like a fluorescent pink milk, and then a large kind of like cream bun, a torpedo, a jam-filled
Yum.
cream bun, and then
With that gross
at
cream
recess
that would
I'd eat
stick to the
multiple
top of your mouth.
very gross stuff. And then, at recess, I'd eat like a bunch of pies and shit. And then at lunch, I'd eat more pies.
See, I missed out on all of this. So I had little wog family. So my mum made us lunch. So we'd eat like schnitzel
Salamis
sandwiches and stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
And then when I did go to a high school where there was a canteen and I was all excited, it was like a performing arts high school. So they were like, we have a canteen, but it's healthy. Because none of the dancers would eat anything other than that. So it was all like
jelly and
whole
carrots and
grain.
cocaine.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I used to
Coked it
take
up.
like when Mum gave me lunch to take, it was like butter sandwich. And like,
Yes.
like
That's
a
probably
piece
all
of
you
bread
ate.
with
Yeah.
No.
But so you were from an ethnic household.
Yes.
I envied households like yours as well. Very much.
boy.
Why? What's your family's background?
It's very, very white. Yeah.
Really?
So
Well, I figured
know,
a little bit with the sushi. I was
we
like-
had ham, but that was probably as
Devon?
oh, absolutely. There was
See,
much
I
Devon.
don't
There was a
still
Devon
know
that we
what
had
that
a
is.
festive Devon with a smiley
No one
face.
knows what. Oh, that even as a fucking child, the festive Devon with the tomato sauce smiley face freaked me the fuck
No, this
out.
wasn't even a tomato sauce one. This
That's
was
a hideous-
imprinted into the Devon like a pinger
Clown
stamp.
meat.
Yes.
Have you ever
That's
seen anyone listening to this?
So disgusting.
Anyone listening to this, type in clown meat into Google. It's Devon. It's a log of Devon with a clown's face imprinted with the fat particles in it. It is the
terrifying
most
meat.
hideous
You ate
fucking
that?
thing.
I ate a similar thing, which was like a Devon with another poor quality meat imprinted into it in the shape of a smiley
That
face.
is so upsetting.
But that was sort of to sit in your bag for 15 hours,
Oh.
sweltering in the heat. But so
I
I listened
know,
to
in
this
the
thing on the radio the other
Australian
day.
summer.
The Australian summer, yeah. I listened to a thing the other day that was talking about how there was like an incident at a kid's school where their parents are getting letters sent home if their meal isn't balanced. Have you guys heard about this?
Yeah.
There's a thing
No.
called the hedgehog gate.
Yeah, I've heard about
Where like
this.
a parent sent a hedgehog slice into school with their kid, and they ended up getting like a small like report
Like
card
one of
where
those
they
like small
marked it.
cakes.
Yeah, just a little cake that was made from the mum had made it for the kid, and it was
Yeah, I've
all
heard about this.
organic stuff in it. And the parent then sent home like a report card for the parent saying the kid can't eat this thing because it's got all these.
We're trying to
bad
encourage
things in it,
healthy
yeah.
eating. Well, it's gone the other way now because all the kids are obese. So they're trying
They're
to
all fat.
compensate by,
Stop body shaming, man. That's
Yeah.
disgusting. They need to be allowed to live the way they're
Ben,
allowed to
ben
fucking
talks
live.
about.
But I suppose it's because we used to go outside.
Yeah, we used to run around.
Yeah, that was the thing.
What are you about to say?
Ben talks about being a fat kid and how traumatic it was all the time.
Well, I mean,
I was a bony kid. That's as traumatic. I got called heroin chick in high school because I was so skinny.
yeah.
But that would be totally in now. If you're a kid now,
That's
That would
true.
be very in.
Now I'd be. So the recording fucked out, and we were
because Sean is
talking
the
about
worst producer in the fucking world.
we're talking about Benny being a plump bebe, and
And then we went off on a whole 25-minute rant about how fucked 20-year-olds are and how they're trying to thought police the entire world.
but you guys missed it. You
Yeah,
missed it all.
Which is probably a good thing. No, what were we talking about? The fear of putting anything on the internet.
Yes.
And the fear of even this
it's
podcast.
great. It's
the
great.
fear of the perpetuity of the internet.
Yeah.
It's there forever.
I
It's
don't-
permanent.
I go through waves of like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Like, what if someone gets offended or hears it and gets upset? And then I'm like, I don't fucking care. Because there's so many people putting so much shit out on the internet, and there's so many things you say. And if there's one thing you say that makes someone totally repulsed by you, then I don't want to engage with that person because those people are fucking exhausting.
Also,
And
people
they're the-
these days are so concerned really with what their own thing is.
And
that they
they're
don't have
concerned
time
with
to
them.
worried about what anyone else
That's
thinks.
exactly
also
right.
the outrage cycle is only ever
It's very short.
a day.
It's very
like
short.
that whole Liam Neeson thing that happened last week. That could have that may as well have happened
Louis
10
C.K.
fucking
is
years
back.
ago.
He's back
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
Long time back.
But that Liam Neeson thing was like
I wasn't aware of it. What
oh,
happened?
oh, so
I'm out of touch with
He's-
all things.
This is interesting.
In
Yeah,
fact,
yeah.
I'll be
Sean
honest,
just
I
said
don't
it's
actually know who
amazing.
Liam
It actually
Neeson is.
is
fascinating.
It is actually amazing. So he was doing promo for.
Let
his
me just
new-
stop. I don't know who Liam Neeson is.
He's an actor.
You know
Okay.
who Liam Neeson is?
He's
No, explain
in
him to me. I'm very poor with all
movies.
pop culture.
He's a
Jin.
oh, fucking shut up, Sean.
What is it?
Qui-Gon Jinn. Have you seen Schindler's List?
A long time
He's
ago.
Oscar Schindler in
Okay,
Schindler's List.
okay.
He's a very renowned actor, and for the last 10 years, he's been doing predominantly revenge fantasy action
Sure.
movies and that kind of stuff. So he has a new movie coming out, which is a revenge, and he's kind of known for being. I think he's like 60 years old.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a silver fox.
Yeah.
He grew up in IRA. Ireland,
okay.
where Protestant pubs were getting blown up, and
Sure.
so he's had a fucking hectic
He's
life.
seen a thing or two.
Yeah.
He's a hottie.
And he's kind of known for having very honest interviews. Like there was a famous clip from a couple of years ago. It's like a plane heist movie, and he's doing press for it, and he's like, every time I'm at the fucking airport, I'm seeing an old woman getting taken off her wheelchair, and they're putting her through security, and I'm thinking, for fuck's sake, she's not a fucking terrorist.
Yes.
And people are like, he's racially profiling. And so he's doing promo for his new revenge movie, and one of the interviewer was like, what's your experience with, vengeance or revenge? And he took this like hardcore sharp left turn where he started saying, look, about 40 years ago, a dear friend, he doesn't indicate who it is. It seems to be a family member or a dear friend, got brutally raped while he was out of the country.
Okay.
And when he comes back to Ireland, he's talking to her, she tells him what happened, and he just fucking loses his mind.
Right.
And he's, asking her, who is this person? And he finds out through a few questions that it's a black guy.
Oh.
And he says, I lost my mind, and for about a week, I was walking the streets with a conch in my pocket, hoping that a black guy would start.
Hold on, what is that? Is that a large seashell?
Yes.
Yeah, just listening to it at different intervals, whispering into his
I think
ear.
it's like a blackjack.
From
like
the
a,
Irish
like a little
seaside.
thing
Oh,
that you
sure.
thump people on the head with. So he's walking the streets with this in his pocket, hoping that a black guy will start a fight with him, and he's like, so I could kill him. So I could just kill any black guy.
To let out his
To let out
rage.
my rage and my aggression. And,
I feel like you might need a press advisor.
well, that was the big meme that came out
Yeah.
of it. But then he kind of segs into this thing where he's saying, and then I snapped into this awareness of like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is insane. And he's saying, and I feel so much shame for this and so much disgust, but this is a real thing, and this is what vengeance does. You lose your mind.
You lose your
Wow.
perspective.
And of course, like the fucking internet,
The whole thing just went
lost
crazy,
their fucking
yeah.
minds. Like, he's racist and And there's a really interesting clip from the next day. He went on Good Morning America to clarify his statements. And I think most people, from what I can gather, have kind of turned around and gone, oh, actually, this is a really important conversation to happen because
because he stood his ground, and he's like, the intention was that I was in pain and I'm explaining what it can do to you.
Yeah,
So I'm not saying I want to kill random people.
Yeah, he was just saying like this is he's saying, and he's explaining his history of going, I grew up in an area where Catholic people would kill any Protestant person. Didn't matter if it was the Protestant person that killed their family. It was any Protestant.
Yeah.
So he was explaining this kind of like toxic, awful, horrible mindset, which is very fucking human. Every war, every blood ritual, every piece of history is soaked with this mentality, this just revenge at all costs. And it seems to me like in this day and age, that's a really fucking important, nuanced conversation that should be happening where it's like, yes, people are capable of going down really dark, awful fucking avenues.
And people aren't discussing stuff like that now because it's just too dangerous. Like
No,
I've heard
and-
stories of lecturers in universities who sort of feel that they can't really deviate from the textbook at all.
They've been
totally.
booed
Because
off
they're so terrified
They've been
of
booed out of
everything,
their job.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's an American university that doesn't teach rape law in the law faculty anymore because people are triggered by the word rape. So,
Yeah.
well, how are you going to defend a rape victim if you're not fucking learning how to?
Everything's going to
What?
be very quiet soon if we
Yeah,
can't. If we
and
can't
It's
say
very-
clapping
yeah.
is
That's a trigger,
triggering.
yeah.
It's but it seemed, I do think, I don't know, it seemed to have a positive outcome in the end that.
But does any outcome even matter anymore? Like you say, how everything's so short-lived. I mean, everything's become very fickle. So if we're easy to become outraged, if we're fast to become outraged, then I feel like nothing really has much currency.
Nothing has
anymore.
weight
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
This is something I struggle with, not just with the outrage culture, but also even doing this podcast. Like, I have this thing of like, even if you record the greatest podcast of all time, or you make the greatest album of all time, or anything, nothing will ever resonate the way anything ever
Do you remember
could have
owning a
20 years.
magazine as a boy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know, I remember like getting magazines that I would order from the newsagent and pick up monthly.
Yeah.
And I can still remember every fucking page.
Everything.
In a good magazine.
I remember
that I
Mad
had.
Fold-ins from when I was 10.
Loved a good Mad Fold-in.
Love 'em.
Lived for it.
Yep.
But now I can't remember anything from like the past 20 years.
No, you
Because
can't.
now imagine being a kid, like, it's so weird. I had one porno as a boy, one physical porno that took very hard to procure, and I knew it well. I knew it intimately.
Yeah, and you treasured it for dear
I did,
life.
but
And you had
now-
an intimate
Again,
relationship with the girl in that magazine. Like there was
Sure, we're
there was a
married.
whole
looks-
mental landscape.
She's my wife, yeah.
and she looked like a real woman. She
Yeah.
had
Sure.
a normal
I'd never
body.
seen one, but I assumed
mean-
that was what a real woman did look like.
Yeah, I mean, you have nothing to base it on.
Yeah,
But
my knowledge was very limited, but now, I mean, everything is so accessible and so. I do often think about magazines, like a kid who grew up loving visual shit in magazines. Like I can still remember perfectly magazine pages because I looked at them so many times. Not necessarily pornography, all kinds of
Yeah,
Hey,
magazines.
no
no,
judgment.
man.
But
No one will ever know anything the way we know a single episode of The Simpsons or Seinfeld or something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
and I kind of think that that's a sad thing. That there's something cool about how much you appreciate something if it's really sparse.
But will they or won't they? Because the generation before ours would have felt that way about us. Because they would have seen how plentiful magazines or television.
True, these kids look at so
or-
many mags.
Yeah, they have so many things they're looking at. They're taking in so much stuff compared to the generation
Sure.
before. Well, what I'm just saying is the things that we're holding on to are things that we value.
Yeah, yeah.
And like the smell of a doll that I had when I was little, because in the 80s they used to make them smell like God knows what, like I don't know,
Yeah, yeah.
pixie
Like mother.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the smell of
milk.
those dolls,
Yeah.
I remember and I loved
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
much. You know. I remember this weird dog toy that you would open.
Oh, I loved
and
it. It had
other-
dogs in its
Yes!
guts. That was a puppy that was sort of like a weird pregnant puppy doll, and
It
it had a
was.
Velcro stomach pouch.
And I loved that, okay? So, but I also had a million toys around me in that I had a lot of siblings and cousins and a lot of things I was exposed to. And I realize younger people today are exposed to even more, but maybe they'll still have those
Yeah,
connections
yeah.
to smells or to
That
The
was
smell of
yeah.
a new iPhone.
yeah, oh,
The feel of a new
that's so
screen. That's-
sad.
No, but how weird is this? I
That
often
is
think
so
that like
fucking sad.
if you look at our
screen.
grandparents, remember like if you watch Mad Men or any of these like old vintage shit, people are just walking around smoking a trillion darts all day because they were like, this is what we do with these awesome plentiful darts. We
how we
smoke them all
partner.
day.
Yeah.
And then someone was like, oh fuck, these darts and constant
Yeah.
martinis are fucking us up.
Yeah.
We've got to chill out. So we look at Mad Men and go, whoa, those guys were smoking cigs all day and all this shit. Do you reckon the next generation will look at us because we were the first, or the younger generation, they'll look at how we are with technology and go, fuck, how loose were our parents with technology? They were just
Yeah.
they were using it all day.
Yeah,
They didn't
I do.
understand
I don't
it.
think they will.
I think we'll
No.
be worse than them.
No.
They'll
because
look at it and
they're
go,
growing
you know
up with
what?
parents who are busier on their phone than with them.
Yeah, but the parents are fucking.
And then they'll
giving
go,
the
fuck, my parents were idiots. They were always there on their phone. We know that you're only meant to have 1 hour of phone a day. Our parents were
I
fiends.
pray for that.
Yeah.
I if I could do one thing right now, I would institute a law that no child is allowed an iPhone until they're 18, and that no child is allowed to access the internet for more than half an hour a day. It is the most toxic.
I
fuck
do
thing
think
that
there
has
will
ever
be
fucking
some
happened.
rebellion towards
I don't
it.
think
Yeah.
there will.
In the sense that there's like, you guys are talking about the sugar growing up, because the 80s it was all about
delicious
sugary,
sugar
delicious-
and wine from boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
And-
technology is growing exponentially, and it's
It
becoming
is
more
growing.
integrated
Yeah, yeah.
to our lives.
It is
and it's
growing.
inescapable.
But at the same time,
However-
the internet is an interesting thing for kids. Like, it's very bad and vacuous, all of the social stuff. But like, you know, I remember as a boy sitting at the kitchen table when some suited salesman came to our house and like an Encyclopedia Britannica merchant and sold my dad like a set of $1,000 books that sat in a big like teak bookcase.
I remember
And I
these.
remember getting like an interest in dinosaurs and looking at the D edition, and there was like fucking 2 pages on dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And so I memorized it. But imagine if you had a kid now, like
Yeah, I
they'd
know.
have the whole internet to look at about emerging dinosaur
Yeah.
shit. So there is good stuff, but I think we probably have to become more responsible with how we use it. Have you guys seen this thing that
Also, just sorry, on that note, there are screens and there are parents who are giving their children screens all the time, and those kids still want to run around and get dirty. And
But they're not allowed anyway because there's like pedos and stuff now.
that's true.
And jams
but in
and
schools and when they do have the opportunity,
anaphylaxis.
they still want to. There is a lot of fucking anaphylaxis, but they still want to run around and eat dirt and
to up to a certain age, and then the addict mentality kicks in. The
Yeah,
problem
probably,
is
like
these
a
devices. The
prepubescent.
system is so gamed against your fucking brain chemistry. They are poker machines. They're portable poker machines. I look back on my childhood and wish that I didn't have a fucking Nintendo.
Yes.
But at least the Nintendo was confined to my room. And when I was on the bus, I had to read a book, or I had to look out the window and daydream, or I just had to be bored.
But
or
how radically
whatever.
different is kids now? I remember as a boy, my dad said, when you turn 6, you can have a knife.
oh,
You know what I mean?
that's sick.
And I was like, fuck, I've got to wait till I'm 6
when
to
you
get a
turn
knife.
10, you can shoot a man.
Yeah, exactly. But how different is that? We had an air gun. We had like 22s that we used to fire at shit in the backyard.
Yeah.
But now, like, kids aren't even allowed outside. And I don't know, maybe that's, I mean, yeah, everything's changed
I
really
don't think it's
quickly.
good.
So what's going to happen in the future? Like, things are just going to keep changing radically.
I think it's-
I don't think there's going to be a regression. I think it's going to go hardcore into it. There are people there. I think there'll be a minority of people that pull away from it. Like I don't have a
Yeah, because-
smartphone, and every time I pull it out,
Dude,
around
how do you
people-
know what's happening? How did you even make it here
I'm
tonight?
so fucking happy not having the internet in my pocket.
Yeah.
It is the power of the internet is too awesome for our monkey brains
We
to
can't be
deal
handling
with
that
24.
thing. It's
We
a
can't.
dangerous tool.
Well, but you can't. It's like it's too much, and the problem is like I've never been good at using the internet. Like I know people that are great on the internet. They go to all these crazy sites and they find
Yeah.
all this amazing information.
They
I go to the
discover
same
things.
three. I go to slashfilm.com and then I press refresh. Is there any new news on the new Aladdin remake? What are you doing?
Yeah, I did
You're
that with news
37
as
years
well.
old.
Yeah.
Oh, The Guardian. What did Trump do today? Who gives a fuck? He said something shit and the world's burning. Why do I need to be reminded every 5 seconds?
That's very true.
So, but often when I pull out my burner in front of people that don't know me,
Are you getting pulled over by the cops with that burner? Just getting your asshole searched?
because I've got a non-internet connected iPod. Sometimes I'm
Yeah.
on the bus and I'm like listening to some music, and then I'll pull out and it looks like a drug dealer.
Yeah,
like
a
I've
lot
got
of
these two
orifices
phones.
being searched on the bus by the cops when they pop on and find your Nokia burner. Yeah.
But I've had so many people say to me like, "Oh, I wish I could get one of those." So you can.
You can.
It's like $89.
Just find a bin and
get rid of your
Find a
fucking-
bin.
Yeah.
But people
Find a bin and dig.
Yeah.
The device is no longer an aid to the human. The human is an aid to the device. When the device goes ping, you reach for the device. You are at the total beck and call of this device, which will command your attention whenever it wants to, and it is gamed like a poker machine to fuck with your brain and for you to just always be there for it.
I'm not as convinced that younger generations will be as.
I hope not.
Yeah.
I've heard of legal cases now where spouses of dead people are trying to like establish who has ownership of weird digital shit that their partner has bought, like songs on apps and all sorts of stuff. And they were sort of saying that how weird is it that if you die, imagine in the future you die, instead of like your son or child looking through a box of weird old dusty photos of people they don't know, it's just like a
On the internet.
USB of your sick and fucked up internet browsing history and whatever else is on this weird thumb drive. Like, have you ever thought, if I died today, what is on my what
Is on my computer.
what fucked up like? And you know, I'm not even just talking about strange, obscene shit, but I search weird questions on the
Yeah, of
internet, you know,
course.
and I don't know how anyone learnt anything pre-internet. I remember when I moved out of home, looking up like how to boil an egg on the internet. Do you know what I mean? Like just strange, obscure questions, but
And also
that's
some
all
dirty
tracked
shit.
away. Oh, and also some utterly filthy, absolute, horrible things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I know. It's
But some kind of ledger of this must exist somewhere.
Oh, fuck
again,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
Probably about 10 ledgers in
Yeah.
different
we were talking before about the weaponization of this data, and that's something I fear as well, that like all of this is being logged, and Google knows more about most people than their families know about them, because you will always ask Google a question that you would never ask another person.
But I guess
Absolutely.
who's above it all then?
well, that
Like everyone is in the same boat.
no, I know, but that doesn't alleviate
Well, I suppose the
my
guy
fear.
who knows the most about it is above it all.
Yeah.
The guy who knows the
team
best
that's-
way
Or
of,
when
of
fucking-
eluding, or the guy with the most cash is above it all. Like,
Exactly.
if you look at Trump
Yeah.
and his ability to obscure
reality.
And, yeah.
Yeah, or what happens when Disney just, they've just acquired Fox? What happens when they acquire the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and then suddenly it's just this omni company that owns all things, and they've got this fucking data history of everything you've ever done, and it's almost like fucking blackmail. It's like, check it out, man. We know everything about you. We know all your weird little kinks and fetishes.
That's what the Russians used to do with they have a thing, compromat. Yeah. The compromising dirt file.
Absolutely, but it's there for everyone now, and it's
That's what they still do, isn't
people
it?
have fucking Alexas
That's where
and
the
Google.
P-tape is. Trump's P-tape.
PP tape, yeah.
PP tape.
But people have like Alexas and Google Assist in their home. This device that is literally a fucking microphone in your bedroom listening to you speak.
I find that creepy.
And people don't think that that's creepy.
I know.
Freaks me the fuck out.
Yeah,
that's terrifying.
Whatever it's called, the Google Home or something.
Google Home. Hey, Google.
Yeah, someone was like, it's so great. You say, hey, Google, and ask them
and you
anything.
ask what the weather is, and it tells you the weather. Cool. You can just go and check what the fucking weather is without a microphone in your home.
No, I
it's
know.
terrifying.
I'm not a fan of that.
But just what freaks me out is the wholesale and almost instantaneous surrender to this stuff.
So, but do you think there'll be a big rebellion? Because I do.
But I don't know. I know that people.
I think that we're fucked.
I think we're fucked as well.
I think we're badly fucked.
Which generation? Our generation, the next one, or
whole-
everyone?
Oh, I
of
think
it.
the whole thing's pretty fucked. Like, I think that things are losing all meaning, and no one really has much energy to give any fucks about really anything now. And I feel like
But
there's
I feel
so
like
many
this is-
problems that we become blind to them all. And I don't know. I'm a pessimist, definitely, but I don't know. I can't see anything really good happening.
But I can't tell if this is. I think that sometimes this is a really not unique, but a perspective that we have, perhaps because we are all sort of in the inner west, in Sydney, of a similar age, of in the arts.
Bubble. We're bubble people.
We're bubble people, and I kind of question if you were to go out to Mount Druitt tomorrow and ask 100 people their opinions, if they would feel similarly or not.
No, because they're thinking about fucking who just won My Kitchen Rules. They don't
Or
give
they're
a
thinking
fuck.
about how they're going to eat, because that's that hierarchy of needs shit.
Possibly,
Like, you
but
can only
people who are out there aren't
entertain your mind
necessarily-
with these bigger, more dramatic things if you've in a spot of privilege where you don't have to be worrying about eating.
If you go to Mossman.
No, because they're thinking, I need a new silk sail for
Well,
my
then
yacht.
why talk to anyone when Benny knows exactly
I
what
know
they're
it
all
all.
fucking thinking?
Look, I know.
You know what I'm saying.
All I know is that a lot of people that I talk to seem to feel harrowed and increasingly
Yep.
mentally ill.
But they are all
from
in your
the
bubble.
Deluge.
They're all in your bubble.
That's true.
They are all very similar of interest and lifestyle to you.
Yeah, maybe the world's just not conducive to inner west.
Like, do you think people in
Arts.
Darwin feel the same way?
I think
Do you
there's a
know what I
contingent
mean?
of people that do. Yeah,
I think there is,
I
but
think
my-
if your
my
eyes
point
are open
is-
to the fucking what's going on, it's
Okay.
fucking deeply disturbing.
What I'm trying to say is the whole thing of we're all offended by everything and no one can focus on anything. I feel like the people who are offended beat the drum the loudest, scream the loudest
true. I
about
agree
it.
with that.
And the rest of the people kind of, if you're at a dinner table and one person's a little shit who's offended by everything everyone's saying, you walk away remembering that loud person, forgetting the fact there's 10 other people at the table who
Yeah.
just want to have a good fucking time and be kind.
But it is
Do you
a
know what I
privilege thing
mean?
as well.
Like-
Like, if you're hungry, you're not outraged.
Oh, I say this
Yeah.
all
Of
the
course not.
time.
No. And
yeah,
if you're...
yeah.
If
and
the economy
you-
collapses and no one has any craft beers,
Of course not, yeah.
then
Which is...
Gender pronouns are
there'll
not
be-
going to be triggering people.
No, people aren't going to be. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, though, right? If we're trying to eat.
Oh, we
and-
say this.
yeah.
We've talked about this. I think it's complete and utter point of privilege if you can say the word bitch triggers you.
Yeah.
What fucking existence
Yeah,
have
yeah,
you
yeah.
lived
Yeah,
through
yeah,
yeah.
that you are
No, it's a-
deeply triggered
Yeah.
and need to go to a psych
Yes.
because of the word bitch?
People in a Mumbai slum are not triggered by the word bitch.
No, I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
I
It
think
is a-
it's
it is a
fucking
privileged thing.
hilarious.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I don't know where it all goes.
I don't think it goes anywhere good, man.
No, I don't
Yeah,
think
but
so.
again, I feel like those people who are being...
Would you guys procreate?
Ben, fuck no. He would adopt? I don't know.
I would 100%. No. Do you have kids?
I love
No, I
children.
don't. I have a wonderful cat.
I see a lot of people when they hear me talk about, like I would never have a kid. I've had
But I mean,
people go,
should you have a kid, Benny?
I'd be a great dad. People are like,
would.
oh, you must hate kids, and it's like, no, I love kids. That's why
that's
I
the
would
point.
not. There are 7.5 billion fucking people on Earth. That God knows how many millions of children have nothing and no one, in their lives. Why are we continuing to create life on a planet that, let's be real, and I know we're not going to go down the apocalypse alley too far,
Again.
but we're fucked.
Yeah, I don't think it ends super well.
It's not ending. It's none of
But
this.
then
this
I
doesn't
sort of
end
wonder,
in the
does it even matter about how it ends? Is it all like, is that like a weird human thing? Like
Yes.
organisms are born and die all the time.
I
Is it
believe-
a weird? Yeah.
Yes.
I don't really know if any of it matters at all. If I give
No, don't.
Yeah.
And I believe it's a very human instinct to fixate on the end of the world because it's been happening since the
Agree with
beginning of
that.
time.
I
The end
agree
is
with
nigh.
that.
The beginning of humans documenting
Yeah.
feelings, something is going to come.
There's always some
and
fuckwit
kill
ringing a
us
bell.
all.
Talking
And
about
so my attitude is,
However, I have noticed it's been getting a lot hotter lately.
Yeah.
yeah,
Which is weird.
Yeah.
In the storms,
And
they
when,
seem kind of
and when
weird.
David Attenborough says, "We are doomed,"
Yeah.
I'm kind of on David's
Yeah.
side on
Yeah,
that one.
that's terrifying.
Yeah. Like when David's saying, "Hey guys, we got fucking 12 years. Tick fucking
Is that what he's
tock."
saying? Do we have
Yeah,
12?
we got 12 years.
Oh, man.
You know, like permafrost is fucking evaporating, carbon, you got elk carcasses that have fucking methane stored in them, fucking evaporating into the atmosphere. There's all these domino effects happening that, I agree with you. Humans have been predicting the apocalypse since day one, and maybe it won't happen. But, in ancient Rome, the
There'll probably be a
environment wasn't
culling
fucking
of some
collapsing.
kind. There may be a plague, or I reckon something.
Oh, there'll
the
be-
Earth will
there'll-
restore itself. I like to think.
The Earth will be
the Earth
fine.
will be fine.
The Earth doesn't give any fucks if humans can't
No,
roll
no.
around on it. It's
No.
just a rock.
well,
this is-
look at any area where they've closed them off because there's been a huge, horrific environmental disaster.
Nature reclaims it.
The Earth is fine. Fukushima is thriving. There are animals and plants
Chernobyl.
there.
All sorts of weird fish.
But there are, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But there are, though. Yeah, same with Chernobyl. It's exactly the same.
When you think
That's
of
the thing is humans sort of think that
Humans
everything
can't do
revolves
it.
around us.
Yeah.
Like, if the Earth fucks up and
The Earth
but really
will
it's the
end.
Earth doesn't give any tosses if we're on it
Earth has
digging it up or
survived
not. It's
much
just a
worse
big
than
pile
us.
of stuff. Yeah.
it is like
well, if it was an ice age, it doesn't matter. The Earth carries on. We don't.
after the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs hit. I don't know if this is actually true, but I heard it on a radio lab, so it's probably
It
true.
must be.
Expect it must be, yeah.
Apparently, it rained black glass for 200 years.
Wow.
Yeah, there was so
dramatic.
much. There was so much carbon and smoke and smog and dust in the atmosphere that it all coagulated into clouds, and black glass just fucking pissed on the earth. So anything alive, and there were things alive at that time. If they had a consciousness, would have
Burrowed
and been
deep-
able to
deep
and been
into the
able to
core.
express it, would have looked around going, "Oh, this is
We're fucked."
we're
Yeah.
fucked."
Yeah, we're utterly
That was
fucked.
fine. A million years later, it was
Some new
covered in
shit had
green,
evolved,
and there was
yeah.
some giant mammals and big dragonflies, and
Yeah.
everything was good. Thinking in deep time brings me a lot of peace.
Yes.
Knowing that there's this. It's not a great series, but the idea is great. It's called Life After People. And it hypothesizes what would happen if we just disappeared overnight. What would the Earth look like a month from now, 3 months from now, a year from now, 20 years from now, 100 years from now? And
To get deep on you, what do you think happens? I didn't ask you guys if you were religious at the beginning, but what do you think happens when you die? To you? No.
to you?
To your consciousness.
I think your consciousness dissipates, and I think that you there is like maybe you should answer because I got to formulate what I how to say
Okay.
it.
I'm also trying to formulate what I'm trying to say, but that's okay. I think what we were meant to do was go back to the earth in the sense where people would die and they'd do an aerial burial and animals would peck on you and then your bones would be used to benefit the community and animals would be happy that they ate a bunch of meat and you just carry on the cycle. That's what I think we were meant to do. We don't do that, obviously. But I don't know. I don't think there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
After you die, I think you go back to the earth.
I think that life is an inevitable byproduct of matter left to run its course if it's the right circumstances and the right environment. And then I think consciousness is the inevitable byproduct of life left to run on a long enough time scale. But I think consciousness it's that whole Carl Sagan thing of like, a conscious mind is the universe
looking at
able
itself.
to look at itself and
yeah.
able to comprehend itself. So I think that your individual consciousness, your ego is just, it's just a mass of experiences and genetics and
Electricities
influences
and-
and all
yeah.
this kind of stuff. So when you die, your consciousness dissipates and your matter is just perpetually
Recycled
recycled
into the
over and
next
over and
thing.
over and over again.
Yeah, yeah.
That whole, we're stardust and
Carbon
all of
and
that stuff.
other
Yeah,
such
that's what I
things,
mean.
yeah.
That feeds the earth.
Yeah, like the atoms in your fucking pinky finger on your left fingernail were a tree and a dinosaur and William Shakespeare's fucking lung and just on, you know, everything. Yeah, he's not. So I think it's just that. I think it's part of me kind of thinks maybe atoms have some kind of weird memory or consciousness or, you know, and that's where that feeling of oneness comes from when you feel that kind of ego
when you take
dissolution.
acid,
Yeah, you know, that ego dissolution where it's like, oh my God, I am all things and all things are me. And it's not said
That's
in
what yoga is.
Well, yeah, I mean,
or
but
acid
or acid.
or, you know, or like, you know,
Yoga or
sitting in a
acid.
cave meditating for a month, you know, like
Sure.
these are states of mind, you know, religious ecstasy or bliss or whatever you want to call it. I think when you achieve that state, what you are really tapping into is your true nature.
Your
and
natural state.
And your true nature is you are the fucking universe. You are a manifestation of the universe.
Which is weird that
having an experience.
humans manufacture so many things throughout our existence to kind of distract us from that thing. Like all of the other bullshit that we carry on with is sort of like no one has the time to experience that state because we're all worried about spreadsheets.
Yeah,
Well,
but we've spent 20 minutes talking about how the world's ending. We're worried about that.
It's true. Yeah,
It's exactly the same.
I think the software of our consciousness is too sophisticated for our brain.
Yeah.
I think our consciousness has gotten way too sophisticated, and so we have to invent fiction and problems for ourselves. I mean, and that's helped us to a certain degree. We'd still be living in caves if we weren't perpetually dissatisfied as a species. We're always looking to improve and get more and get better and da-da-da-da. But now we've hit this juncture where we live better than anyone ever has.
Now I've sort of read stuff that's saying that this generation of Westerners is the first to kind of go back, where our living standards and maybe even life expectancy will go backwards from our parents' generation.
Probably.
I don't doubt it.
I think my parents would have lived a better life than I will be able to live in terms of resources.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, like my dad, like I think like for my dad to get a great job, all he had to do was like put on a set of polished shoes and arrive.
Yeah.
You know? I think things are like much harder now.
You know when you hear those Hollywood stories where it's like, you know,
I bought a set of shoes on Monday and I got the job on
I
Tuesday.
walked into the Universal Studios and they were looking for a guy
they
to
said,
sweep
I like
the
the
fucking
cut of your
porch.
jib, son.
Yeah,
You're in.
and you know, 20 years later, I was a fucking, you know, $1 million producer.
That's weird
and-
because I've sucked heaps of dicks and been an intern for 58 years now and never had a paid job. So, yeah, I mean, so the world's changed a lot, you know? Like
And I do think as the environment collapses more and more, there will be radical changes. Like, I don't think we're going to be eating sashimi 10 years from now, put it that way.
Maybe just a very different type of sashimi.
Yeah, you know, like a fucking jellyfish sashimi or something like that. But I do agree. I think that
A shrink once said to me on the death thing, when I was in my late teens, a whole stack of my friends died at one time, and I got really paranoid about death and sort of started like fixating on it a bit and really worried about dying. Yeah.
How did they die?
All different strange ways. It was just sort of like a weird series of horrible coincidences. But a shrink kind of said to me, I'll tell the listenership for free so you can save 10 grand. But essentially the takeaway was that you don't worry about what happens when before you were born. You should always sort of implore me, you should say, are you worried about the time before you were born? Because essentially that is kind of being dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, it tripped me out. I'll drop that.
No, I read that in the Big Book of Death.
Where were you in the Renaissance?
Yes. That's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah. There is a little bit of a fallacy to that.
Yeah, I was in my dad's bag. Yeah. You know,
but it's also
Strolling
this thing of
around.
you know, where you were before you were born, you didn't have to experience the process of dying. I think for me the fear. I mean, I didn't really have
the fear of dying is really the fear of what goes on without you as well. Like it's a weird thing if you delve into it. Yeah.
No, I think there's a difference between being the fear of dying and the fear of being dead.
Yes.
I have no fear of being dead.
No, but dying is terrifying.
In some ways, like, and I don't mean this in a suicidal or nihilistic way, I look forward to the mystery.
Okay.
And always kind of have, even since I
don't think
here's where Sean will
anyone
have to
is
insert
surprised by that.
the lifeline number after in the editing process.
No. Like I want as I've said this before. I want as much life as I can get. But I remember even it's at like
For a guy who wants a lot of life, you sure as shit talk a lot about death.
Well, I think that you should think a lot about death.
Oh fuck! I think you should think about it, but you're spending your living time fixated on your death.
No. I'm not fixated on my death. I'm fixated on the death of the species. But anyway.
But being fixated on that is not.
No, it's not helpful, but I got a fucking fucked brain that can't fucking think of anything else.
Yeah, I'm also often thinking about it. It might be a weird man thing.
It's
Sean, are you fixating on death of end of species a lot?
I remember when I was like 6 or 7 years old thinking, I can't wait to be dead. Not because I want to be dead, but just, wow, I really want to see what happens.
Yeah.
You
What
really
is it?
needed a dad.
Interested in, yeah.
But, you know,
I'm getting that as well.
But, you know, I think most of the fear of death.
Was this the time when Limp Bizkit was cool?
Ugh.
Corn?
I didn't listen to music till I was 21. My mum just listened to
That might have also
Shania
been the
Twain
problem.
records. It
Yeah.
was like music.
Well,
I
that
thought music
explains a
sucks.
huge
It's
amount
all-
about you.
But I think most of the fear of death from most people is, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels to me that most people fear the process of dying, the how and the when. And
Yeah,
how
I think
is
it's
it gonna
also
happen?
tied up in
And
what,
will it
when
be
you experience
painful?
it, you're also scared of people that you love dying, and then you're also scared of life going on without you, I reckon, in a weird,
I am
selfish
not
way.
scared about life going on without me at all.
Not at all.
And I don't fear death, I think, the way you fear death.
I don't fear death.
All right, then.
It sounds like
I
you're
don't know.
terrified about death.
No. I don't. I've experienced total ego death and total disillusion of self, and it was
You know what?
excellent.
If you died,
Let's talk about that. What happened with that? What happened there? Ego death.
he turned into this. It didn't go well.
But what was
Fucking
the what were
whining
the
prick about
circumstances?
the end of the world.
The circumstances were I was in my early 20s and I was having an experience on a thing, and I became convinced in the course of a extended hallucination that I had died.
Yes.
And I had the mystery of the universe explained to me by beings made of language and solidified time. And
This makes sense about why you've got all the answers.
and the answer was literally the equivalent of like bloop, like it was
Yes.
like, yeah, and I remember just bursting out laughing.
but it was
going,
profound.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
just laughing, going, really? That's it? We've been fighting fucking wars for 5,000 years over that? Like, that's ridiculous. And at which point my body expanded in an infinite line in the left and right direction, starting at the single cell protozoa that I began at the dawn of time, moving through every iteration of life, me in the middle, and then to the other direction, every iteration that my atoms would manifest as after I died. Fuck you. At which point, that all then super collapsed back into me. My body began to atomize and dissolve, at which point I was just pure consciousness. And then my consciousness started to dissipate, at which point I was like, oh, you're definitely dead now. Like, and at which point I shot up in my living room, very much alive, and felt like I was in a two-dimensional South Park like cutout world, and I was very depressed for about 6 months after that.
Yes.
You know what I hope happens? I hope the world does burn, but you are alive.
Trapped in that thing forever.
Sitting
Oh
there
yeah,
going,
great! I'll pull up a fucking deck chair in Martin Place and watch those cunts fucking kill each other. No, I don't fear. Do you fear death?
I don't fear the act of dying. I fear maybe not having done things. I think I fear like FOMO in dying, fear of missing out on shit. I think,
Yeah.
that bothers me a bit.
I think parents fear death
Parents would fear death a lot.
because
They don't know if their
course.
child gets really fucked up without
they
them.
can't look
course.
after
Maybe
the
it's
child.
much easier for us because
Yeah, I think it is.
And that's the thing. I remember not fearing death at all when I was a really young man, and that's why young men are fucking dangerous.
See, I
and
feared
weird
it
things.
profoundly when I was 20. I never had that period where it was like I'm invincible.
Yeah,
Never.
yeah. You never had
I
that.
never thought about it this much.
Yeah, but see, you're different. You're one of the few people I know that doesn't kind of have it ticking away in their head.
My mum talks about it like it's ordering coffee, and I swear that must be why
So
I'm okay
with your
it.
ethnic background, looking at you, what are you? Like you like Croatian or something?
Mum's Hungarian and my
Okay.
dad's Italian.
Okay. So did you have like candles burning and people wearing black and like
My
weird,
nonna had a
Screaming on
Yeah,
coffins.
4-foot statue.
placing burning cigs onto coffins?
My nonna had a 4-foot statue of Mary, and she lights a candle for my nonno every day and used to wear black when he died. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of yelling. My mum's pretty Hungarian, I guess, but I mean,
Maybe that's weird. Maybe it's these ancient rituals around dying that other cultures, bar the Australian culture, have kind of gripped that makes dying more palatable. for
But
you.
my
course.
mum's
Whereas,
different.
you know,
My mum's attitude is like, it's a part of life, it's just going to happen.
maybe that's
And
why
I
those
don't
things
know-
exist.
I don't know if she fears it or if she's frustrated by it or if she's saddened by it, but her attitude externally has had a huge effect on me, which it seems to be very much at peace. Like I remember being like 15 and her being like, oh, when I die, only my girls are getting it, something, and my son, don't any of your partners try and take your shit. Like I remember her saying that and being like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Some
like,
old world shit.
Yeah, she just didn't care.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, now when she says it, I'm like, Mom, stop saying that. But she seems to be very pragmatic almost about it.
Yeah.
Like she's kind of like, look, it's what happens, so you got to be ready for it, and this is what it is.
But when you say like, you know, oh, you think about death a lot, I think that is a healthy.
I think you're
way
more
to think about
reconciled
it.
with death.
Yeah, I feel like okay. I mean, like I would. Having said that, I would be devastated if anyone I loved
That's
passed
the thing
away.
is,
because-
I think the
That's not
scariest
you.
thing about death for me is like if my partner died.
yeah,
If my wife
yeah,
died,
yeah.
like that. That's sort of something that definitely keeps me awake a lot more than the thought of
course.
myself dying.
Of course.
See, I don't
Or
even
even if my
allow
parents
myself to
died,
think
just
of that.
As your do you
My
guys stress
parents are-
about the parents that you have around dying? That's
My
stressful.
mum's
of course,
around,
of course.
and yeah, I always worry about
That's
my
gonna
mother.
fuck
I was
us
with
up.
I was with my grandmother when she died, which was like, it's weird because I feel like I should say it was horrible and it was traumatic, but it was kind of like a really great honor and almost.
Yeah, I suppose it's
Almost
akin to being
beautiful.
there when someone's born. In some
Yeah,
kind
well,
of-
it was you know, because I think the West has a very sick and unhealthy relationship with death. We cloister ourselves from it.
Well, we don't
and-
see it anymore. Remember when,
yeah,
in the
very
past, people would be
separated from it.
put up on the kitchen
Yeah.
table and you'd kind of have
that's
to
right.
look it in the eye.
Go
whereas
and
now
kiss
it's like
his
a
forehead.
weird,
We-
mysterious.
Our relationship with death is akin to our relationship with meat, where it's very kind of.
We
just
quickly
like,
roast it and then we throw it, yeah, and then we bury it in a deep hole.
Yeah.
Fridge
But
it, roast it.
There's
That's it.
there's nothing messy about it.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
very clinical and separate, and you know
We're
don't.
super removed from it.
Yeah, and
maybe we
even-
don't
and even-
grieve because of that now. We don't grieve
I don't
properly,
think we do
right?
grieve
Yeah.
properly, and you know the way we treat corpses is just filling it full of chemicals. Like the best thing you can do in death is.
Gently make love to that corpse. Yeah.
The best thing your body can do in death is give the nutrients back to the earth. But in the West, we fill dead
that's what I
bodies
was
with
saying.
poison
what I
and
Yeah.
embalming fluids, so
Yeah.
that your last act as a dead body is to poison the earth.
Is to quickly dip
around
that
you.
thing in resin.
It's just
Yeah.
it's foul. So to actually bear witness to it and see it, and see her that moment where it was like bang, lights out, and it was quite. She went into massive cardiac arrest, so it was quite. Violent.
Traumatic, I imagine, a little bit.
Well, I mean, time just stopped, and I was locked eyes with her, and I watched her just shoot out the top of her head. She was
Crazy.
gone. Yeah, and there was an intense look of fear in her eyes, and then it was just. I think I've said it to you before. I think I've said
Yeah.
it on this podcast before. It was literally like eject soul now, bang. She just shot out the top of her head and was gone. And it was, I'm so grateful that I was there for that. I can't.
I also feel like it's a privilege, though, to live that long.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Massively.
a high school friend passed away at 35,
Bad times.
And
yeah.
it's horrible. And I had a work colleague whose mate has cancer and who's 75. And I was like, I don't want to be a dick, but at least they had a chance to reach 75.
Yeah, 75. It's kind of like you've kicked the goal. You've achieved the mission.
You know what I mean?
I
Like,
know,
you've
but
had-
say that when
say
you're
it to a
75.
75-year-old, totally. And her response was, I'm 75 in 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I know, and I'm sorry, and that wasn't meant to be offensive.
Yeah.
But, you say 35 to someone who lost their 12-year-old. It's like, it's all in perspective.
yeah.
But I feel like you have the privilege to live that long. It's I mean, even now, I'm the age I am, and I've had minor health scares, but nothing considerable. It's quite lucky.
I kind of feel like as a 34-year-old man that not a lot of epic things are going to be happening from this point out anyway. I'd still like to keep living them. But I feel grateful that...
What do you mean? You feel like you're...
Oh, remember when you were a kid, you had like a
Sliding
list
down.
of... Well, I don't think any like crazy... It's like, what do they say? Like, nothing heaps good happens after 3 a.m. or whatever. Like, I don't have a lot of
I
good
don't.
shit. What do you reckon?
Well, it depends. Depends what you're doing.
There's some
don't-
fun stuff that can
I
happen.
recently got a Soda Stream in my house, and that was like quite a big deal. So
Hey,
it was a lot
Sean's
of-
into his soda
Yeah,
stream.
Sean, I saw it and I liked it, mate. That's what I'm saying. So I mean, yeah, I
it's the
think I
small
feel grateful
pleasures.
to have experienced the. I think I've ticked most things off at this point. So,
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, there's still like,
Whereas if you're like a 15-year-old kid that gets cancer and dies,
Oh,
that's
it's
fucking tragic.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Because you haven't done any of the cool shit, presumably.
Well, you have not grown into
haven't
yourself
formed.
at all.
You haven't
know.
reached that point where you're like, I'm cool with this.
Yeah, like, well, that's the thing.
You're
like,
in conflict.
I mean, even when you're 25, you think, I am who I am, and I look back on myself, and I'm assume when I'm 45, I'll do the same as now. Like, look back on my 35-year-old self and be like, whoa, you thought you had it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's the tragedy. If you could know when it was going to happen, would you want to know?
I've often thought about this. Nah.
Yeah, my attitude is of course not.
No, because I
yes.
think that's gonna cause problems.
100% yes.
Yeah, Ben, you
Yes.
say yes because it'll cause problems, because it'll give you something to fixate on, to justify your fucked behavior.
No,
I'm not going to call him back because I'm going to die in
Put it
4.5
this way, no,
years
it's
anyway.
not that at all. It's fucking, when I saw that Attenborough speech, like I am petrified of travel.
God, I hope Attenborough's senile. And it's just a senile
he's
rambling.
incredibly lucid, and it's not just Attenborough; it's a lot of other dudes. But anyway, when I'm petrified of travel, I have a real. I'm generally very anxious.
You're about to go traveling.
I know, and do you know why I booked that trip to New York? Because David Attenborough says in 12 years we're doomed, and I was like, well, fuck it, let's go to fucking New York City, baby. And so,
to be fair, wasn't David Attenborough saying we have 12 years to turn it around?
oh yeah, because humans are so
renowned.
renowned for getting their shit together.
No, can I just say
12 years out.
Thank
I
you,
don't think you have
Sean.
longer than 12 years.
Thank you,
to see New
Sean.
York.
No.
Wait. Okay. So Ben this whole time has been saying David Attenborough has said we have 12 years left to live. Sean has just interjected.
fake news, mate.
And saying, yeah, well, kind of. Sean has just interjected saying we have 12 years to turn it around. Hang on, Ben. These are two hugely different statements. And Ben gets angry when I say this, but I feel like fixation on the end of the world and how we're all doomed is the most fucking privileged perspective you can have, because you get to indulge in it and you get to say you don't give a fuck, so you're going to throw caution to the wind and all these things. There are people who don't have the opportunity to do that.
That's fine.
Who are trying to turn it around.
I'm not living in their fucking head. I'm living in my head.
But to say we have 12 years left versus we have 12 years to turn around are pretty fucking big differences.
Yeah, we have 12 years until the world is an unlivable fucking hellscape. So while we may still be alive...
No.
You got it wrong again.
Thank you, Sean.
Isn't it
Lean
12
into the mic, Sean.
Okay. From what I understand, David Attenborough was saying that, and scientists have been saying for a long time, that we have a few years left to turn it before the world completely is locked into a feedback loop.
A doom spiral.
And
Doom spiral.
relatively,
Correct.
I mean, that can be really transposed to we have a couple of years, or it's too late for many of the effects, but it is not the same as the world is done.
The world is burning.
The world is unlivable by 2030. It's like saying the world becomes locked in to future unlivability by 2030.
Thank you.
2050.
And
Didn't Hawking said we should develop a shuttle and get
out
out
of here.
quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So I mean, like, maybe we get out.
Well,
Human
what I'll say
beings-
is I feel like often you use the excuse of the world going to end to get away with a lot of stuff, Ben.
In
That's
a
all I'm gonna
world
say.
where Donald Trump, a fucking cartoon character, is the president of the biggest nation in the world, in a world where China has just introduced social credit system,
That's
which
a
is from
funny
a
system.
Black Mirror episode,
Yeah, it's a very
where
funny
Vladimir
system.
Putin is on the rise and will probably become the world leader along with China. Do you really envision in the next 5 years a global coalition that bans the eating of all red meat, stops bulldozing the forest, gets rid of fucking automobiles, and stops fucking carbon pumping out into the atmosphere in the next 5 years? Do you see that as a likely outcome?
No, but what I would say is if you're in Vietnam during the war and you were living under tunnels in the Choo Choo tunnels, would you ever envisioned getting out of them? There were children who grew up in there, who were born in a
People
tunnel.
in the 70s had that nuclear panic shit.
They acid rain.
The Cold War.
You know, if your
But I do
ancestors,
concur
Ben,
that we're fucked though. Yeah.
your ancestors, Auschwitz, do they ever envision a time where
I know.
their Jewish
I do.
generation would
Yes.
be spouting bullshit into
do.
a microphone with other lovely people in Sean's garage? Probably
And
not.
I do feel guilt about that because I do
So
wonder.
what I will say is, as much as we know, we don't know everything.
Having said that, when I asked my grandfather how he survived all that, because when I was about 12, I suddenly
Did he say he just spat heaps of hate and said the world was going to burn?
when I was about 12, I suddenly, as much as a 12-year-old can, but I always knew that he was in camps and his whole family had been executed.
It's hard to
and blah, blah, blah.
discuss.
Yeah, well, I was the only one who was very.
Oh,
open
maybe
with
your
it.
fixation with death. Maybe you have inherited Jewish trauma.
We talk about this every episode. It's definitely inherited Jewish trauma. But, when the full weight of it hit me, like, whoa, what the fuck? What he went through. This man who's I love and is basically my father. And I asked him one day, like, how did you even survive a day? And he goes, oh, you just surrender to the fact that you're already dead. And that's how you get through it. You're already dead.
And you've taken his advice completely.
I think that's what's happened.
Ben has
Because he did that advice.
I think that's what's happened.
clung on for dear life and ran with it.
But it is...
I'm also comfy with that advice.
See, my family went the other way because my mum, her dad was in a camp and then they fled communist Hungary. And so that was a long journey before they ended up in Australia. But my mum is, you should be grateful. So that's
They
drilled.
were very grateful too.
No. But I'm saying the whole thing of accepting your dead is what was drilled into you, whereas accepting what was me is partly guilt, but also shut up and look how lucky you are. And so that's built into me from a very young age of like, yeah, I know the world's burning and I know stuff's bad, but fucking shut up. Like our houses didn't get blown away in a flood and people are. It doesn't stop the fact that there's global warming. It doesn't stop the fact that this shit is happening. But I don't feel like of all the people in the world who have the right to fucking sulk about it, we do because we are living in the most privileged way possible.
Oh, yeah, we're the reason.
But do you also feel that being a pessimist is like, if you're a big pessimist, you can be pleasantly surprised often.
Yes.
Whereas if you're super
absolutely,
positive, then you walk around just being constantly disappointed.
Absolutely.
Well, it's the whole thing. Yeah, we've talked about it.
And I remember when I was about 13, lying in bed one night back when,
when you'd finished masturbating for the 90th time.
Absolutely.
With that one Playboy that you love.
Yeah. No, I used to
Gently
have
crying into your
pictures.
pillow.
I used to have titty pictures behind a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles poster that I would lift up off the wall, and there was
an elaborate.
It was the best.
Elaborate
And
TV
your
setup.
Spice Girls.
Yeah, the Spice Girls. Yeah.
Do you remember standing in a newsagents with a like a Trax surfing magazine just with a sly porno on the inside?
Oh!
I'm just perusing this surf mag, sir.
Culturally interesting thing, Japan, to clean up for the Rugby World Cup, is getting rid of all their hentai magazines because all the businessmen, like all the, what do they call them?
Salarymen.
Thank you. Go into like 7-Elevens and look at these like
So when I went
pervy
to
cartoon
Japan
men.
2 years ago or something, I saw a salary man in a full suit, like a 70-year-old, very small man, leave a legitimate store with 2 enormous shopping bags full of soiled panties.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the
Yeah.
mags. I saw
Yeah.
the mags. Yeah.
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 But they're
That's
cleaning
the thing
it up.
I saw there.
So I find that really interesting. Sorry to jump topic, but we have talked about the apocalypse a lot.
No, it's fine.
Let's talk about the Japanese fixation with weird prepubescent drawings of sexualized figures.
The best thing I love
you guys seen
about-
these dockos?
Yeah, and the
Fucking
thing I'm
weird
so
stuff,
into,
eh?
Yeah.
so Japanese women, I've forgotten the name again, but there's a huge not movement, but fixation for young Japanese
Boys.
women who are in there. Yeah,
Those
but
weird
boy
boy books.
love.
Boy love,
So
it's so
two
weird.
young, effeminate-looking men who are fucking.
Who are bumming
and
all
it's
the
like
time.
their manga, and the women are like eating it for brekkie. Like
It's
they're like,
such
no,
an
give me more
unusual
young
culture,
boys
isn't it?
bonking.
Well, I
To
think,
us.
You're oppressed
Well, I
people
think,
enough.
Well, and also
And
I
you
think,
don't
and
kiss
you
or
drop
hug
a
your
nuclear,
kids.
and you drop a nuclear bomb on them,
And then you drop
I
a
think,
bomb.
I think
Yeah,
something
yeah.
fucking.
you end up with tentacle.
But also
young
they're
boy
massively
porn.
graying. They're not procreating, right?
No, same. Oh, but you know what? Korea's population is dropping at a faster rate than Japan's.
Right.
I also find this stuff really interesting because America's population is dropping quite rapidly
Is
too.
ours?
Ours is, but nowhere near the state of like it.
I
Like,
don't know how anyone can afford to have a kid here.
You can't afford to have a fucking
I
child.
think
very
I think
expensive.
Australians are rich on a global scale, but it is expensive. But it's expensive because we're choosing to live.
I can
where
only
we
buy
live.
my son 15 craft beers a day. You know what I mean? Like, he can't be nourished off those craft beers.
It's where we're choosing to live, but. Korea's population and Japan's population is dropping at such a rapid rate that it's like frightening. They sell more adult diapers than
That's
children's.
so weird. That is so
And
weird.
It's sort of like an extreme problem because there's no one to take these jobs.
But what is it? Is it like an anti-natalist culture or what?
No,
is it
it's
just-
the cult. Look, this is a few things that I've read, which I don't know if they're true, they're theories. One of them is the Confucius culture of Korea, which is you respect your elders, you look after them, you pay for them forever, and they're living longer than ever before. So you're two young people who are in a growing economy where things
they can't
cost
fuck
more.
because their dad's in the room next door.
Mum and dad are in the room. Also, the other mum and dad are in the room. Also, you're paying
There's
for those
four
four
sets of-
adults who are living to like fucking $1 billion because
Yeah.
of their diet. And then there's 2 of you.
And that's a boner killer.
And also in Korea and Japan, women are expected to work whilst being a mother, and they can't do both because if they do maternity leave, they'll lose their job.
Holy moly.
So it's this really bizarre cultural thing where they're trying to create like incentives to be like, please have a fucking kid, and it's not happening. So I also find that really interesting because it's easy to talk about overpopulation because we feel it. Like from when I was young versus now going into the city in Sydney, you do feel it. You feel there's more people.
Yeah, the bus stinks.
The bus stinks.
The bus is
train
always
stinks.
Yeah.
But also
Where are all
there's-
these junkies on the bus always going?
I think
Where are they off to all the time? Why is it that
score.
every time I'm on a...
I
of course,
think, you
the
know
score.
what? They're just zen and they're just experiencing life. And you gotta
They're
be
just in transit. Because every time I get on a fucking bus,
They're bus spotting.
there's one stinky guy and there's a lot of junkies.
There
I
are,
heard
there are more
the
junkies.
greatest
But I
junkie
find that interesting.
I had the greatest junkie conversation.
I'd
on
love
the
to know where
bus.
their destination is.
There were these two guys
Where are they
talking.
offloading?
I don't know if they know.
These two guys are sitting there. They were like off their guts, going, "You know what I reckon's fucked, mate? Like everyone that does nangs, they don't fucking recycle the bulbs."
Yeah.
And they were getting off on this whole philosophical
Aw.
thing about how immoral it is to
It's
not
true. They're
recycle
big
your
issues.
used
Well,
nangs.
They're
just
big
because
issues.
they're junkies, that doesn't diminish
That's
the rest
true.
of their personality. Maybe
Yeah.
they were a greenie.
And then they started off on this whole plan to invent bulbinators with fractal patterns all over them to sell to people at raves.
It could be brilliant, though. That's a brilliant idea.
It's a brilliant idea, but I doubt that they're going to carry through with it.
Yeah, I suspect the motivation's lack. Yeah. And seeking capital could also be difficult.
What was I was talking about lying in bed thinking about stuff. I can't remember.
Oh, the fucking apocalypse. Who fucking
I think it was
knows?
the Ninja Turtles porno.
Guarding against expectation. So being a pessimist to avoid disappointment.
Yeah, the greatest
It's a good
thing an
idea.
optimist
Yeah,
can
I
do.
remember when I was like 13 or 14, kind of like realizing that. But I think that it has manifested into a mental
A
illness.
dark and terrible thing, yeah.
I think it's fair to say you're mentally ill.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Yeah.
It's our comfort pig if you ever want to hold it. Sean bought it for us.
It's a fine pig. It's a fine pig.
Have you discussed having a child with your partner?
It's constantly being discussed.
Right. Does she
Where
want
it's imminent. Yes, she would love to have a child. I will buckle and have a child at some point, I suspect.
How
I'm
do
sure
you-
you'll be a
how do-
wonderful father.
I think you would be, but how do you think that you would cope with your apocalyptic outlook?
Can I interject and suggest one thing?
Yeah.
As someone who works with children, I suggest once you have a kid, you won't have fucking time to indulge
Yeah,
in
that's
such
the other thing is that it's
I
They'll
probably...
be
disagree with
far too
that.
busy looking after them and being concerned with their needs and where their life is going and where you're going.
You've
And
seen that New York Times
Yeah, I'll be
article,
too tired
Raising
to
a
be-
child in a doomed world? You should
I've
look
read
at-
many such
No,
articles.
because I
read this
don't
article.
wank over
It's an
fucking death
interesting-
porn
it's an
like you.
interesting, it's an interesting article.
Oh, what else have you been reading? How we're all going to burn tonight.
Yeah,
Tell me more,
probably.
Benny.
Would you consider adopting a child?
Yeah, definitely. I would.
Yeah.
I would consider adopting
Do you
a
have
child.
$3 million in the bank that you
Yeah,
can...
so what I've heard is it's very difficult to adopt a child.
It's
Australia
what an
in
immoral
particular.
fucking society. Honestly,
I don't understand why it's difficult to adopt a child.
I feel like if you
Oh, I
pass
suppose
all
actually
the
I do. Sorry, hold on.
yeah.
I've just thought about
no,
that.
no, no,
and
no.
retract
I
that
feel like if
statement.
you pass the fucking, whatever, the fucking efficacy test.
If you pass the working with children test,
yeah,
then essentially you should be
If
able
you're
to
not
adopt
a
a child,
pedo,
right?
you should be able to
yeah,
adopt.
like
But I
don't-
suppose that is a difficult thing to screen for.
Well, I mean, it's a difficult, but so you can just fucking pump a kid out. There's no fucking morality in that. You don't know who the fuck's having a biological child.
Yeah, it's...
That's very true. That is very true. This is all terrifying stuff.
Sorry.
No, I like that.
Well, no, so
Yeah.
you are in the arts. Obviously, you're an artist.
Yep.
If you have a child with your partner, which you were saying is something you're interested in doing,
Yep.
do you think that's going to have an effect on your ability to do what you love?
So it's like, it's probably been the main kind of resistance that I've had towards having a child in the past.
Because it would interrupt you being able to do it?
Well, maybe. I don't think it would interrupt it. I just sort of have a fear of feeling really like obliged to earn money.
Oh, right. So the emphasis would be like saying yes to things that you don't necessarily
Well, yeah,
want to do?
there would be that. And like, I think that, like you were talking about before with comedy, that one of the things that allows you to kind of succeed at it is that there's not a lot of pressure around. Like if you put a lot of pressure on it, you can really fuck it up.
Yep.
And so I think that's the same thing with art, definitely. Like the thought of having a child and then having needs or, wanting to do certain things to provide for it in certain ways, I think could be like quite dangerous. But then,
Because it could jeopardize...
yeah, but then when I
you're-
sort of try and be rational about it, I think that the most important thing And again, I don't really know. I mean, living in Sydney is weird because it is so expensive. But then when I try and sort of think about it, I think that it's probably really more important just to be present for your kid.
Yeah.
Like kids here aren't starving. So there's kids in villages who are being born in dirt huts and, you know, like kids are pretty resilient, obviously. And if you look at like a lot of people in Australia that have come from harder places, I think like growing up in a really kind of suburban Australian household, maybe like, being present in your kid's life is more important than having heaps of shit.
Kids' awareness of money is pretty limited to what they're told, I think, by adults. I mean, they're aware if their parents are stressed all the fucking time.
Yeah, if parents are stressed all the time.
But that's because the parents are, you know, stressed all the time and they're talking about money. Like, but if you like sacrifice a few things, but you're still able to be happy, they're going to remember the fact that you're there more. Like I had a father who was a workaholic, so he made money, but we never saw him.
Yeah, so that's the other side of it.
Less money and having a dad around.
And that's sort of the other thing that I think is like if you're supposed to teach a child what you kind of think is right, what your compass sort of says is right, and everyone thinks that's different. Like I've always been really averse to earning money for the sake of earning money or kind of striving to succeed in that kind of way because I don't think it really does anything for anything. So I suppose in a way like teaching that to a child, again, it's also a fine line between being like a dipshit dad and your kid's wearing like a weird set of shoes from a bin or something. I don't want that to happen, you know what I mean? Like I don't want my kid getting bullied because he's wearing like a 5-stripe shoe.
No, but...
Your kid, I mean, firstly, I reckon every kid gets bullied for something, but the chances of that happening I think are kind of slim.
I think teaching a kid that it's cool to, like for me, I think the thing that made me, when we were talking about before, going through your 20s and 30s, whatever, when I kind of felt that I figured myself out was when I sort of figured out that it's cool just to do really what you want to do.
Yeah.
I think if you struggle against that or if you rail against that, then you're inherently fucked.
It's wonderful to just be comfortable in what you're doing and who you are. It's fucking fabulous.
So I think if you can teach that to a kid, then that's probably a good thing to teach to a kid.
Kids just want to be seen as humans. And you exist. You're real. Yeah. You know, and every person I know as an adult who was raised never wanting for anything is pretty fucking dysfunctional.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well, actually.
You know, like I've got a few friends that were silver spoon babies and they are not functional adults.
Yeah.
Because they never heard no. Yeah. They got everything they ever wanted. And when they became,
I heard no.
And when they became adults and they got, entered the world that constantly says no and where you lose 9 out of 10 races, they are not dealing with that at all.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a profound thing. I have worried about the climate situation, all those things around having kids as well, which is stressful.
Do you worry about that generally with work, that you'll jeopardize what you want to do for money? Like
all the time. I worry about it all the time.
Because your work is everywhere. So
it's all
have you ever done something and gone, and then every time you drive past, go, fuck, I wish you didn't do that fucking walk?
Not in that sense, but, there's things that I wouldn't have done had I not have needed to eat.
Okay.
Definitely. Like sometimes there are certain things like that. I mean, there's sort of different ways of justifying it when you're doing it. Like, and so I've sort of thought about this a lot. Like, in that kind of movement, it's sort of like selling out is an interesting thing. But at the same time, like, I have to live to a point, and whether it's like selling out in terms of doing an artwork and maybe compromising on who the client is or whatever a little bit, rather than going and working for like a corporation. And then the whole thing is that all of those works end up funding my ability to make other works.
Yeah, they're enabling you to continue your craft.
So it's sort of like feeding a machine with coal or something.
Preaching to the choir. You should hear some of the fucked gigs we've done.
Yeah, no, totally. But that's the thing is, like, I know a lot of people who would have never sold out, but they're not making art anymore because now they work in a call center.
But also, I don't like the thing of sold out. It sounds so fucking ridiculous.
It does. It also sounds quite pretentious. Yeah, I'm not like a rock star. I'm like a low-end.
You know what you've done?
I'm a low-end artist too.
You've just been professional. And you've taken a job that enables you to continue to do what you love.
Within that...
He's not working for Big Pharma.
But that's what I'm saying.
But there are degrees of it. There are degrees of it.
And within that, I think...
And I think you have to reconcile what it is that you're doing.
And I think you have to have a line of... I think you have to have a line of what you will and won't do. Like,
absolutely.
You and me, Jen, have done a few ads here and there. Which, if I'd gone back in time and told my 20-year-old self that I'd be in a Holden commercial, I'd vomit blood. But
see, I didn't give a shit about that.
I did it. But I got offered a KFC ad, and it was just like I can't.
Yeah.
Like I just can't morally or ethically do it, which is stupid because I need a fucking automobile ad and I'm against,
everyone has their limits.
Everyone's got their stupid fucking
But
line.
maybe you'd have your price as well. If they said you can retire for life after doing the KFC ad, then
I don't know if I
suspect
would.
you're
I got weird superstitions about
hugging that Colonel pretty quick.
I'd hug it.
I would.
I'd make out with it.
I love
don't
the
give a
Colonel.
fuck.
I got superstitions about money. Like deep superstitions about money, and I feel like if it's blood money, I'll curse myself and it'll come back and bite me in the ass.
Money is a fucked up thing.
I have no problem with.
Yeah, that's because you're an amoral fucking.
If I'm fine,
psychopath.
no, I say no to things all the time. But if I don't care and I've committed to doing it, and I know it's horrible, I am very much in my head like I'm doing this for this amount of time for this amount of money.
Let's talk about money for a sec. I think money is the problem.
In life.
Yeah, of course.
Well, in all of the things, because like I'm obsessed with this whole kind of thing around like the current uber capitalist system requiring like 3% of global growth all the time. So we have to be
Infinite
consuming
growth.
more and more and more, and stuff's junk, and then it goes in the bin, and then people are doing all these jobs that don't actually contribute anything real. Like they're all just like shifting papers around each other to add levels of complexity to things that don't require that type of. So when you think about it, like with industrialization, it was supposed to make it so it would work less, but now everyone works all the time, right?
Non-stop.
And has less. Like it's just, where does that all end?
But that feeds into the technology thing again, where it's
Exactly.
like your work is with you at all times, and your boss can get in touch with you.
Which that's the norm now, right?
It's the
People
norm.
are always on their phone and they're receiving work emails.
Well, not just
Is that
that.
a
I mean,
thing?
but if you're in the
I
and this is a question for you in the arts, like
I sometimes receive emails from people working in advertising agencies at midnight on a Wednesday.
And do you feel as though you have to constantly brand yourself on the internet? Like you constantly have to be, your own machine and your own, press agent and that's where the work comes in as well.
Yeah, to a small extent, but not a lot. No, I mean, I'm sure I could do a lot better at it if I wanted to.
But you don't need to.
Like when we first started comedy, it was all about turn up and fucking kill on
And
the
deliver,
night.
yeah.
Now it's like if you're not tweeting every fucking half an hour and Instagramming and a fucking Swish fucking website and all this stuff,
And
it's
an
like
audience
you're
and
not
all sorts of
playing
other
the
things.
game.
Yeah.
And
Which is a
But you
weird
can
game, isn't
choose
it?
to engage with that or not. Like, I mean,
yeah. But you are definitely at a disadvantage if you don't engage in that
You are
game.
at a disadvantage. You're
You
not in
are.
everyone's face, and people will contact you less.
Yeah.
That's true.
It
You'll
just
lose.
is.
You'll lose money for it.
And tying into that stuff I was saying before about kind of backing away from comedy, that's a big part of it as well. It's like I don't want to be a product producing endless content. It's exhausting.
No. But I think that's a thing as well, and I think that is going to become a bigger thing.
Of course.
That's a.
As more
What do you actually want to do? Like, do you want to sweat every minute of everything to achieve this dream that may not satisfy you, or do you just want to be a person and watch
Be a
TV every now and then?
fucking
I just want to be a happy, healthy person
You're a human being. And this is the thing, like this
who doesn't feel bad about drinking wine all the time.
Yeah. And
And this
smoking
is
the
the
odd
thing,
glass Barbie, whatever.
and when you're a constant product that's always out there, it feeds that really toxic part of your ego that's like, well, that guy got more shares than I got.
That's so vacuous and terrible.
It's just this awful zero-sum game.
That's a
and
terrible thing. And dude, that's the thing is kids are experiencing this now.
I know.
Imagine being 7 and experiencing like a weird
Existential crisis.
that you're getting less likes on your thing than another kid. That's so weird to me.
Do you have any grand hopes or dreams? Like I have dreams in comedy, but some of them I've already done,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty happy. So do you have anything that you're like really aspiring for with art that you're
No,
like,
not at all.
or is it more organic?
It's more organic. It's the whole art thing
Oh,
is
see,
not like
that's
a planned out
refreshing.
thing. What it actually is was like it's a compulsion to do that stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yes, you
So
don't have a
it's,
choice.
I don't have a choice, and I do it, and I'm not seeking anything out. And I could have.
Is it meditative?
No, well, I have actual obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
So I've had it since I was a kid, like heavily medicated for it, and like
Yeah.
it's a big thing. So that is like a big part of it. It's like making those artworks, and particularly like certain ones of them were really, really kind of like playing into that. But no,
That's
I
really
really have
interesting.
no aspiration around any of that stuff. And if I did, I would have done things like very differently.
It's
Because
interesting
I don't
to
take
know.
a lot of the jobs that I get offered, I'm not like hustling. You know what I mean?
No, it's organic.
And I'm not at all keen to do that either. Like, if I had a kid, maybe it would change a bit. I don't know.
Did you ever have that dream of, I want to be the artist?
No,
like the iconic artist of my generation.
No, not really. I don't know, and I think that like from seeing other people that maybe are that artist, I don't think that they had the dream either. The people that I see who have that dream are usually people who aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the weird thing is that when I see people who are kind of maybe trying to manifest that dream, it's like maybe just make art instead of thinking about how cool it would be.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
just
they're
do some shit.
doing the same.
Just go and do some shit.
The same or less than you. John Ronson has a quote about people who have anxiety and OCD, and he talks about them being the mental illnesses that are the most adorable because they're about pleasing and they're the most warming and the most human he refers to, which I agree with. I mean, because we've talked about anxiety and all that kind of shit. It's all over fucking comedy.
Yeah,
but what
it can be kind of endearing, but it also can be horrible if like someone can't leave their house because they're conducting weird rituals around taps.
I have a very close. I have a close friend who has.
Yeah, it can be kind of crippling. But
actually, we also have another friend who has. It's prominent in comedy. There's a few people who have.
I feel like it's a weird kind of evolutionary thing that's gone a bit haywire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like it ties to
How closely tied is it to your art? Because for a lot of comics, they will say their mental illness, whatever it is, whether it be OCD, anxiety, depression, or however it manifests, is closely tied to their stories and their performance, if you will.
I would say that every single aspect of my life is the result of the mental illness.
That's really interesting. So
but
your
again,
art
seeing it as a
like,
mental illness is a weird thing. Like,
I know, it's
because
just
now everyone
easier.
labels everything as a mental illness. Like, I think that, maybe if you saw let's think about engineers for a second. People just used to call them engineers. Now they're like people on the spectrum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was kind of like
everyone's on the fucking spectrum
So the
now.
thing that defined them was that they were like quirky engineering people, and that was really cool. Or if you look at crafts people who made things, like I suspect a lot of them had OCD.
Of course.
All those things, now that we're just categorizing all these weird things. And when you look at myths, like those archetypal mythical characters and things, they're people with what we call now like mental illness.
And it has a...
Pan. What was Pan? Was he like an ADD kind of, or Puck, or like...
We've removed context and there's no place for these things
We've
anymore.
made everything really clinical, like you're talking about with death. Like, instead of it being like a...
your brain functions differently, and that's great.
What we call OCD has been...
well, it's not even that different. It's quite common.
OCD is like... it's me. Like, separating me from it is impossible. I've had it since I was a kid.
It's your personality.
It's my personality. It's tied
just
to it.
labeling a
it's
part
the same
of your
as someone with
personality.
ADD. Like, remember at school, the coolest kid? He's now the kid who's like weird and like jacked up on Ritalin, sitting quietly and contemplating why he's a fuck up.
There's an idea
We've done that with everything now. Everything. So anxiety as well. Like, like that's a weird thing now. Like, you're anxious. Like, I think we've fucked that up a bit.
But also it's that thing of like, it's quite normal to walk into a group of strangers that you've never met and have to conduct conversation and feel anxious. That's a normal human reaction to a weird situation.
But isn't it what defines us are those things anyway? Because I know that like my thought pattern is a result of that shit, and like maybe your decisions are a result of being anxious and then thinking...
Yeah, but I don't even know. I agree, because I don't even know if I think it's negative. Because like I've talked with a dear friend of Ben and mine, not a Noika, but a great gal, about anxiety and just like the labeling of everything and how everything is associated with a negative now. So even feeling sad, which sounds strange to say, is a really big negative, where it wasn't always the case.
No.
Where like feeling sad was okay because it was satisfying and it was in a way a good feeling.
It's
feeling
human.
worried served a purpose. I have little weird things, like I constantly am playing with my fingers and it drives my family crazy and they're like, stop being anxious.
But that's
I'm
sort
like,
of what
I'm not.
defines
It's
you.
just like a thing I do
You
that
can't
I'm
separate
not,
yourself from it.
and I'm not aware of it, and it doesn't mean I'm anxious. It just means other people see it as that. But
not that long ago when they would talk about hysteria in women, they thought that like your ovaries were like flinging and flying all around your body based on the moon. Like, we don't know what the fuck's going on.
yeah, but I think it's tied to personality too, and I think people label it because it's more digestible.
Yeah, totally. People are comfy with
Also,
with
there's
labels
a societal idea of normal, which doesn't and never has existed. But people, I think a lot of the anxiety and a lot of the self-loathing is caused by like, well, I don't fit into that norm. And people freak out over... I remember a friend of mine, their kid up till the age of 3, barely spoke. He just
Was it a
didn't-
boy?
Yeah, boy.
That's common.
Yeah, that's a
didn't
thing,
speak.
right?
And then
Boys
one day we
wait,
were sitting
yeah.
there on the couch, and out of nowhere, he just starts going,
A 15-word sentence.
no. Out of nowhere, he just starts going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. He'd never spoken, and he counted to like 150 out of fucking nowhere. He'd
Yeah.
never been taught numbers. He'd never been taught math, and they freaked out. And I'm trying to say to them, this kid could work out, how to travel light speed. He could be like the next genius
Yeah.
mathematician, and you're trying to jam that out of him because he's not fitting into the norm. It's
yeah.
like, no,
Or it
but
could be
he's
like-
got this unique brain. Let's celebrate that instead of condemning this part of him that doesn't
does stress
work.
me out now. As that kids, the kids are diagnosed with so many things. Like one of my friends, it's
They're diagnosed
Well, what's
early
that
on.
one?
really
Objection-
early, and they're put on meds.
ODD.
Really.
No, not ODD. What is that one?
ODD. ODD.
What is ODD?
It's defiance disorder.
A defiance disorder. When a kid says, I don't want to do that, they've got a disorder. It's a defiance disorder. No, they're just a fucking kid that doesn't want to clean their room.
Yes.
And it's up to you as the adult to not abdicate responsibility and go, no, clean your fucking room.
Yeah, or I'll hit
no,
you
they've
with
got
my
a
shoe.
disorder.
But I feel like
for
it's just
fuck's
related
sake.
to control. I feel like defiance and a lot of labels that are thrown on humans are just related to our need for control. So I have a family friend whose daughter didn't speak much until she was 4, and they were like, oh, they're really worried, but she speaks at home. And I'm like, it's just control. It's just taking charge. Like, we underestimate how much their brains are taking in. They know if a stranger talks to them and they don't talk back, they're choosing not to, and they're flexing their little muscles. They're like experimenting
they're
the way
they're the dominant character in the relationship.
they're testing, they're trialing out interactions with people. So
Yeah.
they're just trying out different types of control, which is what we all do. It's just when people don't know what to do with it, they're like, oh, well, that's clearly on the spectrum of blah, blah. It's like, or maybe they're trying out control. And then maybe when it gets more serious, it's like, well, maybe they ended up like this because their lives are a fucking shitstorm and their parents are fucked and they're trying desperately to cling to anything because they're growing up in a tornado. Like maybe.
But how weird would it be for a kid now? Because parents are so busy now. Like, remember, it was hard to get your dad's attention when he was reading like a ye olde newspaper.
But also,
like-
we know more now about relationships with children and what they need than we ever have before.
So before
Your
children were really
dad-
different, right?
Well, your dad would have been like, you give him a knife
Yeah, you give him a knife, he's 6.
and then
he'll
that's
cut-
it.
Yeah.
And then he'll grow up and be right. Whereas
Yeah.
now there's like so many books and there's so many lectures and there's so many things on like
But is it all bollocks?
possibly, but I
think it's
don't.
largely
I think
bollocks.
it's overly complicated.
Yeah.
I don't
it's-
think the things like I think maybe we got so far removed from what we are, but I do believe, if you do not make eye contact with a infant child, there are side effects that will occur to their development. And if you are a parent who grew up perhaps in a turbulent upbringing, maybe you're not aware of that because your parents are fuckheads. So maybe you need to read the book. I don't know, but there are books now that tell you how to be a human
just-
for people who've been removed from that because of their own personal
If you
experience.
want, if you want to fucking interact well with a kid, don't hit them and be warm and funny, and everything else will kind of just,
That's not a parent's guide, though.
No, but I'm saying-
there's nothing grosser than when parents are like,
That's a
"I'm
simple
their
pamphlet.
friend."
No, I'm not saying be their
like,
friend.
yuck.
That's not what I said. And don't be their
And I don't think
friend
that's
because you're
helpful.
not their friend. Being
That's gross.
warm and funny is not being their friend. It's accepting them as who they are as human beings and not trying to mold them into some manifestation of what you wish they were or what you
I
want them
think
to
the
be.
biggest gift is parents can accept themselves and be
Accept
comfortable.
themselves.
No, parents accepting
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
as parents and being comfortable in their skin and then treating the child well.
But
Because
it's
I
this-
feel like no matter
That's
what
what I
you
hope
do,
it is.
your kids will pick up every insecurity you have. I feel like everyone turns
course.
into their parents. Every time I'm like anxious about something, I'm like, oh, I'm a mother. Like I'm just like how quickly you turn into your parents.
Definitely.
You know,
God.
but
Yes. Yeah.
I think like the kids you see that look happier that have the parents who look happy.
But also they're acknowledged as human beings. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing better you can do for a kid than to look them in the eye and go, "Hey man," and
That's a new thing, hey?
And remember
Yeah,
what
treat
they
them like
told you the
people's
last
new.
time.
That's new, right? They were just a
Brand
little
new.
thing before.
Brand new.
Yeah,
Treating
but I mean, they
children
are
like
just
people.
little humans, and
Yeah.
they're much more intelligent than we give them credit for. What they lack in intellectual intelligence, they more than make up for in emotional intelligence and tonality intelligence. Like
Well,
they
and
understand
environmental.
tone.
They know people. They can read people better than we can.
Of course.
So that's the whole thing of what I was saying with the 4-year-old who's like just testing their muscles around people because they can pick up on that more than we can.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
It's terrifying.
it's exciting.
It's terrifying.
Are you going to paint together, you and the baby?
No, I'll probably encourage it to get a real job in the bank.
You'll be the dad who's like, go to fucking law school.
Well, that's the thing. I imagine that, like we were saying before, that, I know people who had parents that were artists, for example, and like some people that I know had the absolute loosest parents are now the straightest adults.
Oh, great.
It's the whole the people
The
that
rebelling
grew up with
against, in order to
parents in the
rebel against your
circus.
bong-smoking parents, you have to become a banker.
Yeah, of course. What's
That
that old phrase?
To really disappoint your bong-smoking parents, you must become a
run
banker.
away from the circus and become an accountant.
Yeah, it's sort of the way
That
it works,
gives
I
me
reckon.
faith if we have children. I was joking to Chris. I was like, we'll make them listen to Bill Hicks when they're in the womb. And he was like, no.
Yeah. So do you think you'll have children?
I don't
I'm
know.
hearing that you're
Discussing
having children.
No, I'm not. Yeah.
Have you guys been discussing this?
Chug-a-lug-lug.
Yeah.
Have you guys been discussing that? Having
Yeah.
kids?
That's how it
Whoa.
begins. Your
That's
ovaries are
heavy.
ticking.
Why don't you adopt a kid? Adopt a kid.
Oh yeah, I'll use it with my $4 million in the bank. Good idea, and my track record.
Why don't you adopt a
Google
kid?
my name, and you know what comes up?
Yeah, I'm sure they're giving you
Comedy
kids, yeah.
gigs where I'm like, this fucking can't, meow, 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 or horror stories.
Isn't it horrific that
of
your past
being-
history can stop you adopting a kid, but nothing can stop you conceiving a child?
That's true.
It is a horror show to me.
Pop it
Yeah,
out.
that is problematic.
No, I mean, I do have a few regrets. A few of them involve podcasts.
Ah,
but
does that mean I'm gonna have
being
like
drunk.
I'm gonna have
Not
an
this
honorary
one.
niece or nephew? You're gonna let me hang out with your kid?
Only when you're.
When you supervise. Yeah. Only in the company of someone with a working with children check.
Thanks, man.
Only if you have your paperwork taped to your chest.
Yeah,
No,
very
you're
good.
great. You're a great man.
Thanks for your condescension.
I feel like we've covered quite a lot.
That's a lot of minutes.
A lot of minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's a
Thank
pleasure.
you, Nico.
How
That
can-
was
Well,
awesome.
it's a pleasure.
Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. I've had a great time.
Yeah.
I'm just terrified of this being dug up in the future, and I'll be sitting in like a pine. What is it, like a dock? And I'll be reading from a transcript. No,
If this gets dug up, we're all fucked.
We're all fucked, yeah.
I was
Don't
going to
worry.
lie and
lucky
say
we don't
we'll
have any
take it
listeners.
down.
Yeah.
It's really
That'd be
just us and
terrifying.
Sean.
Yeah.
How can people find you in life if you want them
I
to?
think just go onto Instagram and find me at Nico NICO _ Nickerson NICOSON.
Find Nico.
Follow
Thank
me
you.
and purchase my exorbitantly priced artworks.
Oh yeah.
Buy
you got
it
all this
all.
like cool fractal stuff. You into
Yes.
fractals?
I enjoy fractals.
Fractals are great, right?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
life is fractals.
That's true.
I
I
don't.
true have smoked DMT. Yeah. I've seen the fractals as well. I'm aware of the god mechanism that twists and turns.
the
I've seen
machine
it also.
elves
Yeah, good
walking
mate of
on their
mine.
lips.
Yeah.
I don't want to tie it to OCD stuff, but I find that stuff oddly comforting. Is that weird to say? But I
What?
do.
No, it is. It is
Especially in
hugely the
patterns.
order
And
of
so
a pattern.
so when I see your works, I feel like that makes sense to me, and
It's me making sense of the
like
chaos.
it even
yeah.
more.
Yeah. No. Totally.
There's a podcast about unraveling Ravel. I'll say it really quickly because I've probably said it before. You know, dun, 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 you know that piece of music?
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah.
It just carries on forever. And they figured out that when he was writing it, he was having something basically clicked over with his brain, and that's how he created the most amazing piece of music.
The brain is a weird thing. So, yeah, I have a type of synesthesia as well, which in the nighttime.
Whoa! You
So I
should
can
have said
see-
this earlier. We're not
I
done
can
yet,
see.
Sean.
I can see color. So when noises happen, I see them as colors.
What color does my voice make?
It's not
Poo
like that.
brown.
It's not that type of synesthesia. So, and it only happens when I'm really tired.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but so often loud noises are just blue flashes. Yeah, which is pretty cool. But also, after doing a float tank once,
I do float tanks.
yeah, I had this thing where I saw new colors.
yeah,
so
right,
colours-
like a mantis shrimp.
Well, colors that I couldn't describe. Colors that I don't have a name for.
Whoa.
Which was fucking cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
That's very interesting.
Do you think that you could recreate those colors through the blending of colors that you do?
No, definitely not. Because all of the colors that we know and have words for are part of those spectrums that are made up of
Yeah, they're on the
different
wheel.
colors from the prism.
That's
So yeah, I saw
crazy.
colors. Yeah,
Dude,
yeah.
that reminds me of this story. I was at a pub one time, and I never usually talk to strangers, but for some reason just started talking to this guy, and he started telling me how he'd taken magic mushrooms for the first time. And I was like, whoa, did you get like the bliss? Did you get the connection? And he's like, no, what happened to
Just
me
got the
is...
boner. Yeah.
He goes, I'm clinically colorblind. I only ever see black and white. And he goes, when I came up on the mushrooms, I suddenly saw everything in color.
Terrifying, absolutely
he
terrifying.
saw color for the first time, and it was
And you're a disgusting pink
mind-blowing.
man, yeah. And you are very pink, sir.
Very ruddy fucking cheeks, and I feel sick. Yeah, but I couldn't even imagine what that must be like to see color for the first time, but to see colors that don't otherwise exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing. The mind is very weird.
Yeah, the mind
The mind's amazing.
The mind has a lot of shit trapped away inside of it, I figure.
And we only unlock a little bit.
I have a question on this. So if you had... Sometimes there's a word for this, but I don't know what it is, where you prescribe emotions or personalities to things. Like sometimes you think, well, the number 8 has a feeling.
That is synesthesia.
Yeah, that's
right.
synesthesia.
So that's what it
that's
is.
synesthesia.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a type of. There's lots of different types of synesthesia, the way I understand it.
Right.
So
That's how a lot of
some people have sort of letters that they assign colors to and numbers that they assign colors to. Is quite common. I think it's more common than you think. Like I think 3% of people or something have it. So mine's a different type. It's just sort of occasionally seeing sounds, particularly if I'm tired or if I'm in if I'm a bit sort of frazzled, then I will see colors. Like if you were to clap, I would see it as a big blue flash.
That's so
so
cool.
it's a sound becomes a color.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
But what you were just describing, Sean, is it's a mathematical synesthesia. So those guys that can remember pi to 1,000,000 digits.
Yeah.
It's they're seeing this entire
Yeah,
landscape. So they're just
They're the
describing the
savants.
landscape.
They're savants.
Yeah, it's
like,
crazy.
If you ever want to get in a crazy YouTube hole, just
Yeah.
like Google savant.
Yeah.
And there's like dudes who make fucking sculptures of everything from every angle.
Have you seen that guy that can look at a cityscape?
He draws the cityscape
Isn't
with a
that
pen. Fucking mental.
insane? He can look at a cityscape
Dude,
for
that
like
is
3
the
seconds and then
craziest
recreate
thing.
it down to each gargoyle
Each window
and
from
window
right angle.
frame.
It's
And
fucking
yeah, it's
mental.
amazing.
The human brain is a crazy thing, and I feel like we don't. I mean, if only we could access it.
I know.
You hear those stories about guys that get like hit in the back of the head, and they're just normal people, and then they get hit in the back of the head, and then the next morning they wake up and suddenly they know what the weather was on Thursday, June 7th, 1973.
And
And
they
there's
get
also a
hit in the
commonality
back of the
amongst
head again and
serial
they kill
killers.
their family.
Yeah, so
what is that?
serial killers often have had a frontal lobe
Yes.
injury early on in life, like pre-5.
Sorry, now that we've talked
Yeah.
about the brain, I got to bring this one up as well.
Yeah.
Real quick.
No, it's fine.
I saw this movie, Free Solo, last
Right.
night about this guy, Alex. I don't know what his last name is, but he's one of the world's most famous free soloists. And this
Okay,
is
like free jazz type shit.
no, it's a sport.
Oh,
What
sport.
They climb cliff faces with no ropes or harnesses or anything.
Sure, terrifying.
Is this the Yosemite one?
The Yosemite one. It is. I watched it tied in a knot, thinking I was going to throw up the whole time. He climbs. It's the biggest sheer rock face in America or maybe the world, and he
doesn't have any attached.
nothing.
Terrifying.
And in the doco, he climbs it like 30 or 40 times with ropes and never once makes it without falling. Because it's literally there's no handholds. There's literally tip of your finger holds, and it's 3,500 feet of sheer cliff face.
Horrible.
Well, he doesn't have a death wish. This is the crazy thing. They put him in a MRI machine and they scan his brain, and his amygdala does not work like the rest of our amygdalas work, so he doesn't feel
Doesn't have
fear the way we feel fear. So, and it goes into his whole psychology. Like he talks about how he's
So it's like sociopaths not feeling empathy.
Yeah,
and it's like a physiological thing.
Yeah,
Have you
and
seen that doco? I Psychopath? You guys
Is that
know
the guy that reads his own brain scan and realizes that he's a psychopath?
No,
but they
I
show a crazy bit of
watch it.
footage in it where like all these guys walk. They show sociopaths watching a camera that shows people just walking through it, and the sociopaths can pick victims of previous crime by the way they walk, because they're used to kind of identifying people who have a weakness and then exploiting it, manipulating them. Yeah, it's fucked up. It's fucked up. It's very frightening.
The brain, huh?
Yeah,
Are you
the
into
brain.
John Ronson?
No, I don't know who John Ronson
Oh,
Yeah,
go
you should
into a
get
hole
John
into
Ronson.
John Ronson. He's sick.
Yeah, he's great.
is. Is he?
Yeah, he's great.
He's like a better version of Louis Theroux.
Okay.
His new audiobook about the porn industry and August Ames is really sad but very good.
Butterfly Effect.
No, it's new.
Oh, really?
It's called
Is this the one where he says at the beginning, "This is not a murder podcast"?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
I just
Will it ruin
listen.
my
I
ability
binged
to
it.
masturbate to pornography?
No, don't
Okay.
worry. I was
The
worried about
Butterfly
that too.
Effect will
Yeah, I don't want to be guilted out of porn.
No, because you know what will though? Fuck, we're going in a weird direction now. Have you seen After Porn Ends? Don't watch that.
Yeah, that's
Jesus
rough.
I've seen it
Christ.
advertised on Netflix.
Oh,
rough.
that'll ruin you because they're all like, I'm never doing that again. My life's fine. And then they flash back 5 years later and they're like, so I'm doing triple X
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I
Have you
want
guys
to.
seen the Social Network?
Of course.
That's bothering. That
It's all
bothered me. It
bothering.
made me feel quite bothered.
Why?
Because it's all such bullshit. Paris Hilton is a strange creature.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant the Facebook
Oh, sorry, fuck,
movie.
I've called it the wrong thing.
Yeah, so
what
did
did
I.
I watch?
What
What
is
did I
it?
watch?
The Instagram.
What's the
documentary.
Instagram doco?
I know what you mean.
It's called
I don't
social influences or
Some
some
bullshit.
like
Oh,
that.
I haven't seen that.
It's on Netflix. It's frightening.
I'd watch it.
Yeah, it's just about like the
Paris
the five
Hilton's really
biggest
just like a
Instagram
sad
stars.
lady who lives in a little room and
course.
can't go outside.
Of course.
I thought I was a psychopath because I'm obsessed with documentaries. And when I read, I have zero interest in anything other than like biographies or like,
Well, it's fine. It's just your thing.
Yeah,
I can't read.
nonfiction.
I can't
But-
read nonfiction.
Well,
it just
John-
bores the shit out of me.
See, I love it. John Ronson was like, the first way to tell that you're not a psychopath is by being concerned with being a psychopath.
Yeah, that's the
because
thing.
you would never be able to have that process. And I was like,
Oh,
I'm
thank
not a
God.
psychopath. I'm just
Yeah.
into documentaries.
Have you heard about the guy that he's one of the guys that created the psychopath test? He was a neurologist. He's still around.
And John Ronson has that book too. I think you'd like it.
Okay.
The Psychopath Test.
He's
Oh,
a
yeah,
neu-
I've read that book.
So that's him.
Yeah, okay. Crazy.
So
And
So
Men
this-
Who Stare at Goats is him as
okay,
well.
okay.
So this guy would he discovered this MRI test you could do on brains to discover what parts of the brains don't function.
Yeah,
when
what's
you're
not
a
lighting up.
psychopath.
Yeah, it's the
and
frontal
so,
lobe.
And so he had this whole stack of scans on his desk that he was separating psychopath, not psychopath, psychopath, not psychopath, and he came across one that was a psychopath, clinical psychotic. It turned out to be a scan of his own brain.
Terrifying.
Oh, that is
And then he went to
horrifying.
all of his. He does a TED talk, and he's not like a murderous psychopath, but he's a psychopath.
No, well, apparently most CEOs are psychopaths
Of
and
course they
sociopaths.
are.
Yeah.
I think most politicians are psychopaths.
Yeah, it's totally unrelated to wanting to kill
course.
people.
Yeah.
Or
I
it's,
think
it's related, but it's not sort of.
I don't doubt that a lot of people
yeah.
that get into military are psychotic.
Or join the police force.
I don't know why you would want to run into a hail of bullets unless there was a part of your brain not functioning properly.
Yeah.
You can tell me it's all about patriotism, but I don't know.
And I'm sure we've evolved that for a reason when you think about it. Yeah. Like as warfaring people.
Hey, Nico, this is a weird question. But in the past, we've ended episodes where people have suggested things people should listen to or read. I'm going to suggest The Last Days of August by John Ronson, which is an audio book, which you can get for free if you sign up to Audible. Also, I just love John Ronson, and I think it's great. It's about August Ames before she died and the build up to it with the porn industry. Nico, do you have any recommendations for
I
our
have many,
listeners?
but I would recommend The Naked Ape by Desmond Morris.
Oh, what a fucking
classic
great
for
book,
me.
isn't it?
It's a great book. I
Never read
recommend
it.
that everyone reads that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a,
It'll blow your mind.
a zoological study of humans.
It'll blow your mind. Did you know that women have tits to emulate like an ass? Because we used to. Yeah, that's where I ended.
There, I
Yeah.
was like, Nico, man,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Big scoop from the book that he's figured out that. No, but so.
I didn't
it's
know
too
that.
crazy for me to go into.
Hang on,
but
wait,
like,
can you finish that thought though?
yeah, so it's like we used to run around. It sort of looks at reasons for human behavior based on like a zoological way of thinking, and
Cool.
so he hypothesizes that we used to run around and fuck doggy style all the time because we were like these crazy ape things, and so when we became upright, the women in our species had to evolve these big titties because these things aren't these things aren't in other animals. There are other animals that are milking and they don't have huge
titties.
breasts. No. So it was it's like human females evolved them to kind of emulate an ass.
Hell
So that
yeah.
while a dude was banging a woman upright, there'd be this thing that was kind of evoking some prehistoric ass.
Like titty fucking. They're like, it's still
Yeah,
a bum.
no. But it's sort of like there's some kind of ass cue.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, but
The
there's all sorts of other
arse
things.
cue.
He talks about all other things like the
That
lips.
explains the ancient
He says
Greece,
that
'cause
lips were
the
evolved
boys-
to kind of emulate a swollen
Pussy?
vagina.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, lips are
and
definitely.
that women wear lipstick to kind of
Yes.
to kind of emulate this engorged vagina.
Mating call, I've heard
And
that. Yeah, lips are
there's
a
all
pussy.
sorts of stuff in this book. It's fucking crazy.
I'm into
And he
it.
talks
It's
about
a
us being
I've got it. I'll lend it to
evolving
you.
from
Thank
being
you.
a little insect-eating monkey into
Man.
into a thing. So yeah, I recommend the Naked Ape
Nico,
by
your
Desmond Morris.
recommendation exceeded all my expectations.
Naked Ape.
Sold.
Yeah.
It's a great one.
Benny, are you going to be able to beat that with a recommendation?
I can't beat that.
Yeah, I think
will
that's-
recommend. I think it's still showing. It's probably on you. You can rent it on YouTube now, but people should watch Free Solo.
Okay.
It is. you will have an anxiety attack just watching it, even though you know he
I recommend,
lives.
a large dose of ketamine before watching it. Yeah.
No. You don't want to watch a disassociative that'll make you relate too much with this guy. But it is actually, beyond just the feat of what he does, it's an interesting exploration of just the psychology behind someone that wants to do that. And also, it interviews his girlfriend, who I think is kind of crazier than he is, to be honest.
Most likely.
Why would you want to be with someone like that? And in a weird way, it's like she's trying to talk him out of doing it, even though she met him on a book tour while he is balls deep in doing this. And it's like, well, then why are you with this guy when you know that this is what... And he's like plainly saying to her, like, I'll choose climbing cliff faces over a relationship any day of the week.
Whoa.
Well, that's just his brain doesn't function. So it's a fascinating documentary and a book. I think I've recommended this before, but Finite and Infinite Games.
Oh yeah, you have.
Wonderful. Well, one of my Bibles. Everyone should read that book.
I'll definitely read it.
You should read it. I think you would get a lot out of it.
What's the vibe?
It's kind of what we were talking about before about how
the world
to
ending.
It's about how to access creativity and basically just how to live in the way a child does, in the sense of living to live rather than living for outcome.
Sure.
And it's all about kind of not trying to prove yourself to other people, because by proving yourself to other people, all you are doing is confirming that you are a loser in your own mind.
Whoa.
It's a very interesting book.
I'll definitely dip
Fantastic.
into it.
It's about 200 pages long, and it is dark matter dense.
You guys read a lot of books?
A lot of books.
I read a huge amount of books.
Yeah, right. What are
It's
you reading at the
my
moment?
escape.
I just finished a book last night, but I'm about to start one called
What did you finish?
Little Tree. It was a piece of fiction.
Right. Have you ever read Moby Dick?
No, but do you know that there's now an edition of Moby Dick entirely in emojis?
Fuck off.
They're saying that emojis
makes
are
me fuck
a future written language.
Moby Dick is one of the most exquisitely written things I've ever read, and I read it for the first time this year, thinking it would be a dirge and homework, and it was fucking brilliant. To think that it was put in emojis is deeply problematic.
Well, a lot of linguists sort of say that emojis add a new level of context to the written word. So, like, if I said "fuck you" and just sent it to you as a text, whereas if I said "fuck you" and then sent it with like a laughing emoji, it's like it is a weird thing. The emoji.
I'm not saying it doesn't have relevance, but
bastardizing a brilliant work into
fuckheads.
I read a gnarly book recently because when I went to Korea, I wanted to read Korean authors just because I'm a bit lame. And I read.
Have you seen any Korean horror films?
Oh man,
yeah, they're fucked
in the Red
up.
Shoe or whatever the fuck.
They're real fucked up.
They're very fucked up.
But I read a book by Han King called The Vegetarian, which won a bunch of awards, and it's gnarly as fuck if you feel like going down that road. It was a woman who's like becomes a vegetarian and then just this insane gnarly shit happens and it's full on, and I read it on a plane.
What happens?
Oh, she
become a cannibal? Is like
she
that movie
becomes
Raw?
like a flower, and she but she does and she doesn't.
Sounds
and
amazing.
Korean shit, yeah.
and and then there's affairs happening, and then there's it's all this suggestion of relationship, and then what it means that she's become a vegetarian is full on. But if you want to get a bit of a mind fuck, I recommend The Vegetarian by Han King.
All right, so what would you say is the most?
Open fractals
Okay,
now,
sorry.
What would you say is the most mind fucking book that you've read? What book has bothered you? No, in all time. What's the book that's bothered you in
know.
a weird,
I'm bad
perplexed
with
way?
that.
upset me.
Not upset you, but disrupted you.
At the moment, it's the Han King one because I just finished
You need
it.
to clarify disruption. What does that mean?
It's had it's had a profound impact on you in some way.
The book.
If I asked you one book, you can feel it. What is it?
It's a comic book series by Grant Morrison that he wrote in the mid-90s called The Invisibles, and I think that I would be a completely different human being had I not read that.
Yes.
That changed that literally rewired my entire consciousness.
Yeah.
Reading that book.
I view reading as like a therapy.
Yeah, okay.
I read because it calms my brain down. It helps me sleep. And it helps me think clearer.
For some reason, when
So
I
I
read The
don't know
Tropic
if-
of Capricorn by Henry Miller, it kind of fucked with me for about 3 months.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, see, but do you like that in reading a
I
book?
like that.
Because
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
liked it, but it was
I like
it
it.
was profound.
I don't like it. So the Han King books fucked with me for a bit, and I don't look for that.
I love it when a book stays with me for months.
I look for intrigue and I look for interesting and I look for escapism, but I don't look for that sensation that you're referring to.
That's
That jarring shit, yeah.
Yeah, which I got from The Vegetarian, which is why it sort of stayed with me. And I'm sure I've had it before, but because I don't look for it when it happens, I find it quite confronting.
Yeah, it's a confronting thing.
Yeah, like at the moment, the other books that I'm reading about like how Korea went from a poor country to a rich country, like the explosion of Korea financially and socially. Like
What is it, Nong Shim?
No.
I eat a lot of Nong Shim. You know Nong Shim's like the country. It's those delicious kimchi flavored noodles, my man. Or have you ever eaten the archetypal prawn cracker from any Asian grocer? That's a Nong Shim product.
The archetypal prawn. I thought you meant that was the
cracker,
title
it's
of
got
a
an
book.
orange
the
prawn.
archetypal prawn cracker.
Desmond Morris, the archetypal prawn cracker.
Moby Dick got under my skin in a big way, and I did not expect it to. Because you think, it's a fucking 800-page book where he's describing rope making and whaling for 500 pages of it, but it really.
Oh,
Ishmael. Is there a character called Ishmael?
Yeah, well, Ishmael's the narrator. But please read Moby Dick. It is.
I can't believe I've never read it.
Fucking
I've never read it.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Now we're just talking about books. And
Is this a book club podcast?
I know.
Some people say that Moby Dick could be like an alternate Bible, and I totally agree with that. Because some people are like, oh, it's just boring. There's a whole chapter on rope making. It's like, no, but the rope making is a metaphor for the functioning of the universe. Yeah, for his dick.
The rope is my dick.
It's like, honestly, I can't shake it to the point where it's like, I think I just have to read it again. Yeah. I think I have to do the whole 800 pages over again.
Brilliant.
And it's like thick,
That's
biblical
a nice feeling.
fucking language. And
Reading a book
and
again.
you're rolling
Biblical
the words,
language, yeah.
It's beautiful.
You guys read Nick Cave's books?
The Ass and the
The Ass and the
Angel. When I was
yeah.
like 19.
Yeah,
When I was
when I was
19 and
younger.
angsty and smoking bongs in my parents' garage.
I saw him
I
live.
remember
I saw
it
him
being
do his
hot though at that
Q&A.
It
age.
was cool.
Yeah,
it's a
when
cool
I
book.
read it when I was
He's a
younger as
brilliant
well.
author.
And I remember being like, oh, this is sick.
God, I wish Nick was my dad.
His
Yeah.
Q&A at the Opera House was, I didn't think it was possible to love him more.
Can I say I
And
think he's Australia's best living artist?
He's the world's best
Yeah.
liver.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful fucking human being.
Yeah.
And he was so funny and generous, and there was like, whatever it is, 2,500 people at the Opera House, and
Yeah.
it felt like sitting in a living room with him.
What
he
a
was
guy.
so warm
Which is
and
a power.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was
Nick, will you be my
wonderful.
dad/husband?
And there were so many people that would get up. There was
Yeah.
one guy got up and he's like, yeah, g'day, Nick. I just wanted to let you know, mate, you've been going from strength to strength lately, and the place just loses it. And you could see, and like there were multiples like that. Like one guy got up and he's like, yeah, g'day, Nick. First time I saw you was at Field Day in '97,
Yeah.
and then after it, we passed each other, and I said, g'day, Nick. Do you remember that? And Nick Cave's like, yeah, I remember you. Yeah. But
Yeah.
like. You could see that there was a part of Nick Cave that was like, it doesn't matter how
Yeah.
big I get, I can still
I'm
come
still
back
here.
to Australia, and these
Yeah.
fucking bogans will
Yeah,
get
there's
up.
the
And he was
comfort.
delighted, you know, it was beautiful.
Love the one you did with Kylie, mate.
It was
Loved it.
beautiful. And then
Yeah.
one guy got up and he's like, what the fuck was with Nocturama? That album sucks.
Oh no. Yes, welcome home, Nick.
Yeah, it was
welcome
wonderful.
home.
All right, I feel like this could go on until fucking
I know.
for another few
Okay,
hours.
we
Man,
could-
we'll have you back. This
Game
is
on.
fucking great.
Game on.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We will have you back.
This is the inception of a book club podcast.
I know.
Yeah. I
I'm
would love
kind
to
of
do a
like
book
maybe we
club
should
podcast.
just have you back and talk about books.
Yeah.
Because I want to talk about a few, but I'm not going to because you're right, Ben. It could go forever. And this is the Oink Time pod.
All right.
So, Nico, once again, how can people find you?
On the Instagram.
Find Nico on the Instagram.
Yes, that's done. Please find me. and
No,
follow
say
me.
the actual Instagram.
Oh, the
handle.
Instagram is Nico NICO_NICOSON.
Find Nico on the Instagram.
And
Send
what's
him.
your website, Nick?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's artofnico.com.
Artofnico.com. You need to check it out, Oinkers.
Purchase my works.
This pig does
Thank
smell.
you, Nico.
Wait,
Thank
do we
you.
Want, do we want to choose a word?
Oh,
No.
Nico.
Nah.
Well,
it.
no, we
Decide
can.
it
Wait,
afterwards.
Nico, what word do you think rounds up that episode? It's up to you. You can pick anything. I don't care what it is.
Doom.
Yay! Doom with Nico!
Yeah.
Woo! Thank you, Nico.
Wow. Here we are in the
Sick.
garage. Yeah, good one.
I have to
We
pee
get
up
any
on the side.
content?